Chapter 780. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. The child's kick seemed weak, but it was a different story if the child was little Jing Kong. This was little Jing Kong, who had been practicing martial arts in the temple since he was a child, and had started practicing martial arts not long ago. The strength of his kick was incredible. Imperial concubine Han only felt that the back of her foot had been hit by a small weight. She let out a cry of pain. Ouch! Then, she lost her balance and fell backwards, awkwardly sitting on the muddy path. Mud splashed everywhere. Little Jing Kong pulled the young princess and jumped to the side. In the end, only Imperial concubine Han's face was splashed with mud. Imperial concubine Han was stunned. She was already so old. She didn't expect to fall down like this, especially in front of all the servants. She flew into a rage out of humiliation. There was a piercing pain in her right foot and ankle. Her well-maintained face was scrunched up, and she could no longer maintain her usual noble calmness. The palace servants were frightened. Su Gao hurriedly walked forward. Imperial concubine, are you okay? The two little kids stared at her blankly, not understanding what had happened. Although the touch of stones and feet were different, how could children be so sensitive in this aspect? Little Jing Kong was completely surprised. Why did this old granny fall down? Imperial concubine Han was about to be helped up by someone, but the word granny made her so angry that her entire body exploded and she fell down again. Old granny. Little kid, do you have any eyesight? Imperial concubine Han was a first-class beauty when she was young. Even though she was old, she paid special attention to her daily maintenance. She looked like she was less than 50 years old. She was an elegant beauty. Little Jing Kong tilted his head and looked at Imperial concubine Han. He didn't understand why adults cared about the title. After all, his master was 27 or 28 years old, and already called himself an old granny. In addition, his grandaunt didn't care about her appearance or her age at home. She wasn't even satisfied with her current seniority, and wanted others to call her old granny. Therefore, little Jing Kong was very modest when he called her granny. Imperial concubine Han was so angry that her mouth was crooked. While the atmosphere was extremely solemn, the monarch walked over with Zhang Dequan. He was here to look for the young princess. The little lass didn't insist on going to the state preceptor's hall today. At first he found it quite strange. Had the little lass's personality changed? Or was she tired of playing with her little friend? Then, he heard that she had brought her little friend back to the palace. This little girl had even learned to bring people home. But he couldn't say anything. Because of Zhang Dequan's reminder, he remembered that he had indeed told the little girl that if she had any friends in the future, she could bring them back to the palace to play. The monarch arrived at the scene, and saw that it was a mess. Imperial concubine Han looked like she had suffered a disaster, and the two little kids seemed to have been frightened by her. What happened? He asked in a deep voice. Your Majesty. Imperial concubine Han, and the others hurriedly bowed to the monarch. Imperial concubine Han didn't bother to tidy up her appearance and said to the king, Your Majesty, it's nothing serious. It's just that child just now. She accidentally stepped on my foot. Before she could finish speaking, the young princess rushed over and hugged the king's thigh. She turned her head to look at Imperial concubine Han and said, Imperial concubine Han fell. She's in pain. I'm so scared. What are you scared of? The king didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If you're so timid, why do you still run out every day? Little Jing Kong walked over and greeted politely, Hello, Uncle Light Shui. He already knew the identity of the young princess, and that her uncle was the king of the Yin kingdom. But his family had never instilled in him the concept of hierarchy between the imperial power and the commoners. The emperor of Zhao country and Qin Chuyu didn't either. It was just a simple matter of making friends. The king's gaze fell on the little boy's young face. It was normal for him to be calm when he didn't know his identity, but now that he knew he was the king of the Yin kingdom, he could still be so fearless and calm. Was this little boy stupid and didn't know what imperial power was, Or was he born fearless even if he knew? The king suddenly thought of the Xianyuan family, and what Xianyuanli had said. He asked Xianyuanli what he pursued in his life. He thought Xianyuanli would answer that he would be loyal to the Yan kingdom, assist the emperor, or revive the Xianyuan family, and make the Xianyuan family the most powerful family in the Yan kingdom under Xianyuanli's leadership. But he didn't get any of his answers right. Xianyuanli stood under the bright sky and said with a solemn expression, "Set your heart for heaven and earth. Set your life for the people. Inherit the lost knowledge of the past, and bring peace to the world. Set your heart for heaven and earth. Set your life for the people. Inherit the lost knowledge of the past, and bring peace to the world." He had lived for half his life and had never heard such enlightening words. At that moment, he felt that as the king of a country, he had become narrow-minded. Uncle, why aren't you saying anything? Jing Kong said hello to you." The young princess hung on his leg and grabbed the jade pendant on his waist. Only the young princess would be so daring. Prince Ming also grabbed it when he was young, and the result was miserable. The king's face darkened immediately. The king came back to his senses and gently took away the young princess's hand. "You're not allowed to grab this." "Okay." The young princess obediently took back her little hand. The monarch didn't want to think about the past anymore. Under the gaze of his little niece, he greeted Jing Kong respectfully and asked, "Why are you treading water?" "It's fun," the young princess said. "A girl should act like a girl." The king was about to say this when he remembered that Shangguan Yen was even more naughty than the young princess when she was young. The young princess only stepped on puddles, but Shangguan Yen jumped into mud. The palace didn't let her jump, so she ran to the Xianyuan family to jump. Thinking of Shangguan Yen, the king's expression became complicated. Since the king was here, it was impossible to continue the game of treading water. "Imperial concubine, please return to the palace," the king said to Imperial concubine Han. Imperial concubine Han smiled softly and said, "It's raining. Your Majesty, why don't you bring the young princess and her little classmate to my palace? I'll let people prepare dinner. There's crispy meat that the young princess likes to eat." The king looked at the young princess, but the young princess shook her head. "I don't want to go to Imperial concubine's place." The king took the two little kids back to his bedroom. Imperial concubine Han saw that the king didn't care about her at all. She was so angry that her feet hurt even more. Little Jing Kong had a pleasant night in the palace. He stepped on puddles and ate the imperial food. Although he could only eat vegetarian dishes, the taste was very good. It was getting late. The king called Zhang Dequan. "Go to the rearguard commandery and ask Wang Su to send Jing Kong to the imperial teacher hall." The imperial grandson liked children very much, and asked him to accompany him in the imperial teacher hall. The king was very tolerant towards a grandson who was about to die. As long as he didn't kill or set fire, the king would let him do whatever he wanted. Wang Su had a friendship with the imperial grandson. Asking him to send Jing Kong back was also a disguised way for the imperial grandson to see more of his former friends in the last days of his life. However, Wang Su was not there. He went out to do something. "Then you will personally send him back," the king said. "Yes." Zhang Dequan brought two imperial experts and sent little Jing Kong back to the imperial teacher hall. Little Jing Kong held the bag of books and said, "Okay, I can go in by myself. Goodbye, eunuch Zhang." Zhang Dequan said, "I will send you in." Little Jing Kong waved his hand. "No need. I know the way." He had walked from the entrance to the Qilin Hall many times. It was no longer raining. Little Jing Kong held the bag of books and jumped out of the carriage, running towards the Qilin Hall. "Slow down." Zhang Dequan couldn't catch up with him even if he wanted to. How could this little guy run away so fast? Little Jing Kong wanted to jiao, so of course he ran fast. He ran forward energetically and didn't notice that there was someone in front of him. But the moment he was about to bump into the person, he suddenly became alert. He held the bag of books and dodged to the side, brushing past the person. However, his wrestling attribute suddenly flared up, and he fell forward with a cry of pain. That person suddenly turned around and grabbed little Jing Kong with her slender jade-like hand. The bag of books in little Jing Kong's arms fell down. He was quick to react. He hooked and grabbed the bag with his little toe. He caught the bag of books that almost fell into the puddle. Wow! The man exclaimed in surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect the little guy to react so quickly. "What's your name?" he asked. Little Jing Kong was still being carried by him, like a little silkworm hanging on a tree. Little Jing Kong turned his head to look at him and said, "I'm Jing Kong. Who are you?" He said, "I'm Feng Wuming, Taoist name Qing Feng." "What does Taoist name mean?" Little Jing Kong only knew the Taoist name, but this guy was very good-looking. Taoist Qing Feng said, "It's also a name." Little Jing Kong said, "Oh, why do you have so many names?" Because one of them was a Taoist name. Taoist Qing Feng didn't have any experience with children, so he couldn't explain it clearly. He simply changed the topic. "Who did you learn your skills from?" Little Jing Kong asked. "You mean the skills just now? I created them myself." Did he learn how to wrestle from others? It seemed that he didn't have a master. In fact, Taoist Qing Feng and Little Jing Kong met once. But at that time, Taoist Qing Feng was busy dealing with Liaochen and didn't pay attention to this little guy. Little Jing Kong was only looking at his master and didn't see Taoist Qing Feng's movements clearly. Taoist Qing Feng only felt that this little guy's voice was a little familiar, but he couldn't remember it. Taoist Qing Feng said, "I just saved you. How are you going to repay me?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while. "Can't I thank you with words?" Taoist Qing Feng. Taoist Qing Feng pointed at his wrist and said, "But you tore my clothes." Little Jing Kong looked down and found that when he grabbed the book bag, he accidentally grabbed Taoist Qing Feng's sleeve and tore it. He said in a daze, "Then, I'll compensate you?" Jiao Jiao said to be a little man brave enough to take responsibility. Taoist Qing Feng said without changing his expression, "This set of clothes is very expensive. You can't afford it unless you compensate me with yourself." He wanted to take this kid as his disciple. Little Jing Kong exclaimed in surprise. He hugged his bag and frowned in embarrassment. But I'm already Jiao Jiao's. How about this? I'll compensate you with my master." On a roof somewhere in Chengdu, a monk who was drinking with his head up sneezed fiercely. "Digression. Set your heart for heaven and earth. Set your life for the people. Inherit the lost knowledge for the past sages, and create peace for all ages." Zhang Zai, a master of the Northern Song dynasty. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1063688892. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 781. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all here. Jing Kong. Not far away, Yi Qing walked over. He looked at Taoist Qing Feng and then looked at little Jing Kong, who was being carried in the air by Taoist Qing Feng. He asked in confusion, "What happened?" Little Jing Kong explained, "Big brother Yi Qing, I almost fell down. It was big brother Qing Feng who saved me." Yi Qing was even more confused. "You guys know each other?" Little Jing Kong said, "We just met." "So that's how it is." Yi Qing nodded and reached out to take little Jing Kong. "Thank you, Qing Feng." Since Qing Feng failed to take in a disciple, he didn't say anything else and left without looking back. His temperament was different from normal people, so Yi Qing didn't take it to heart. The road was muddy, so he directly carried little Jing Kong back to the Qilin Hall. When Zhang Dequan finally caught up, little Jing Kong had already skipped to find Gu Jiao. Zhang Dequan went to visit Shangguan Yan. Knowing that Shangguan Yan didn't have any benefits, he sighed in melancholy. Little Jing Kong entered Gu Jiao's room and found out that his grandaunt and uncle were here. His reaction couldn't be said to be very similar to Xiao Heng's reaction, but it was exactly the same, a proper little chicken. "Little monk, come here." Empress Dowager Zhuang sat on a chair and said to little Jing Kong. "I'm not a little monk anymore," little Jing Kong corrected, and patted his little ponytail with his little hand. "My hair is so long." Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. "Humph, look." Little Jing Kong ran over with his bag of books, stuck out his little head, and let his grandaunt see his ponytail. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, "And it seems to be a bit long." Empress Dowager Zhuang took the bag of books from his arms and put it on the table. He looked at the two and asked in surprise, "Grandaunt, granduncle, why did you guys come so far?" "To steal your food," Empress Dowager Zhuang said. Little Jing Kong acted as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He immediately pressed down on his pocket and said, I didn't hide any food." Empress Dowager Zhuang was speechless. On the way here from Little Jing Kong he was tanned. Now that he was back, he was more muscular and stronger than when he was in Zhao country. It was indeed a healthy calf. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't say anything, but a trace of imperceptible relief flashed through her eyes. After the brief shock, Little Jing Kong quickly regained his talkative nature and chattered away for the whole night. Empress Dowager Zhuang's fear of being dominated by the little trumpet spirit came to her head again. She leaned back in her chair, as if she had nothing to live for. The old chancellor tested him on his homework in Little Jing Kong, and discovered that he had learned quite a lot of new knowledge in Yan Kingdom. Even the old knowledge from before didn't fall behind. In the trip to the Yan Kingdom, only Little Jing Kong was studying seriously. Little Jing Kong insisted on sleeping with Gu Jiao and Grandaunt tonight. Gu Jiao didn't object. In the dead of night, the mysterious hall of the state preceptor closed its sharp eyes like a giant abyss beast. The mosquito net was filled with the smell of wine and medicine on Empress Dowager Zhuang. Little Jing Kong was sprawled out in the middle of the room, holding his favorite little golden abacus in his hand, and breathing evenly from his little mouth. Gu Jiao pulled a small piece of cloth and put it on his small belly. When she was about to close her eyes, she heard Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was sleeping outside, ask in a daze, "Is Gu Yan's illness really cured?" Gu Jiao said softly, "Yes, the operation was very successful. He will be like a normal person in the future." "Oh." Empress Dowager Zhuang turned over. After a while, she asked as if she was sleep-talking, "Xiaoshan has grown taller?" "Yes, a lot taller. It will be quieter here in a few days. I'll bring them here." "Okay." Empress Dowager Zhuang answered vaguely, and finally fell into a deep sleep. After Imperial concubine Han lost face outside the bedchamber, she came back and sat in her room for a long time. She didn't reconcile with her temper until midnight. Su Gao breathed a sigh of relief. "Your Highness." Imperial concubine Han calmed down and looked calm for a long time. "I'm fine. You can leave." "Your Highness, do you need to do anything over there?" The over there Su Gao was referring to the spy they placed in the Qilin Hall. Imperial concubine Han sighed. "No, it's just a child. There's no need to make a fuss. Follow the original plan and don't act rashly." Hearing Imperial concubine Han's words, Su Gao's hanging heart returned to his stomach. A little impatience spoils great plans. "Your Highness, you are so wise." His praise was sincere. Imperial concubine Han was a person who was easily angered, but her temper came and went quickly. Once that ferocious energy had passed, she would no longer go down a dead end. "How can I delay my business for a child?" She vented her anger on the child because it was an easy thing to do. It was as easy as swatting away a bug that had fallen on her body. There was no need to consider or plan. She didn't expect that she would fail. But no matter what, she couldn't let herself be immersed in the anger of such a small situation. Her real enemies were Shangguan Yan and Shangguan Qing, as well as the new commander of the Han family's Black Wind Cavalry, Xiao Lulang. "Shangguan Yan's group still needs to be treated with caution," she said. "Let's wait for them to get some useful information first. It won't be too late for me to take action." The next day, Xiao Heng sent Little Jing Kong to Lingbo Academy first. Then he went to the insurance company in the inner city of Chengdu to find a suitable house. Empress Dowager Zhuang and the old chancellor finally realized that this was the Imperial Preceptor's Hall, the most sacred and mysterious place in the Great Yan Kingdom. More than 30 years ago, the Yan Kingdom and Zhao Kingdom were both lower kingdoms. Relying on the wisdom of the 6 books in the Imperial Preceptor's Hall, the Yan Kingdom rose rapidly. In just a few decades, the Yan Kingdom had the strength to compete with the Jin Kingdom and Liangliang Kingdom. As the Empress Dowager, Zhuang Jin dreamed of seeing the 6 books of the Yan Kingdom. And as a powerful minister, the old chancellor was also full of curiosity and yearning for this treasure land that gave birth to such powerful wisdom. After the two got up, they were shocked for a long time in their rooms. They really came to the Imperial Preceptor's Hall that they dreamed of? It seemed that the 2 children still had some ability. They could get the qualification to enter the Imperial Preceptor's Hall in just 2 months and be treated as a guest of honor. Although they had the support of Xiao Heng's royal family background, it might be the 2 children's ability that made it to the Imperial Preceptor's Hall alive. They were young and lacked experience, but at the same time, they also had a wise mind and the courage to move forward. They had the luck that the Empress Dowager and the Chancellor couldn't have. Well, not bad. Empress Dowager Zhuang muttered. Gu Jiao didn't understand why her grandaunt said that. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't intend to explain, lest the little girl's tail rose to the sky. She asked, "What is that protruding ear doing?" Gu Jiao said, "Little Li is sweeping the corridor with the other 3. I paid special attention to him this morning. He hasn't moved at all. He doesn't take the initiative to ask for information, nor does he try to get close to Shangguan Yan." Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. "He is biding his time." Gu Jiao said, "If he is biding his time, how can we find the culprit behind the scenes?" Empress Dowager Zhuang casually said, "If he doesn't do it himself, we will find a way to make him do it." Empress Dowager Zhuang went out of the room. She came to the corridor. The 4 of them were diligently cleaning, not too far from each other, but not too close. Empress Dowager Zhuang walked over with a body full of medicine and the smell of wine. She was just an ordinary patient, so the palace servants naturally wouldn't salute her. Correspondingly, she also wouldn't attract attention. When she passed by Little Li, who was sweeping the floor, Empress Dowager Zhuang's footsteps paused and said in a voice that only the 2 of them could hear, "Master told you not to act rashly. You must stay calm." After that, she walked away as if nothing had happened. Gu Jiao observed Little Li from the crack of the door. Little Li's expression was still the same, but he looked at her grandaunt strangely. This was a perfectly normal reaction after being accosted by a stranger, and said strange words. This acting skill was superb. If her grandaunt didn't say that he was a spy, who could see it? Empress Dowager Zhuang went to Gu Jiao's place. She didn't let anyone find out that she stayed here at night, so it didn't matter during the day. She was a patient, so she should come to see the doctor. Gu Jiao closed the door and went to the window with her grandaunt. She whispered, "Grandaunt, what did you just say to him?" "I just told him not to act rashly and to stay calm," Empress Dowager Zhuang said and then added, "In the language of Zhao country." Gu Jiao blinked. "Don't worry, he understood. The 3 of you are not hard to deal with, and you are also under his surveillance. You are from Zhao country. If you want to exchange information with someone, is it safer to speak Zhao country's language or Yan country's language?" "Zhao country's language." Because ordinary disciples couldn't understand, Gu Jiao understood. In order to better monitor her, the mastermind behind the scenes would definitely send a palace servant who understood Zhao country's language. It was too hard to be a spy these days if you didn't know a few foreign languages. Gu Jiao said again. "But what did that sentence mean? Why didn't you directly let him act, but let him stay put? Wasn't he supposed to stay put?" Empress Dowager Zhuang explained to Gu Jiao patiently, like an eagle elder teaching a young eagle how to hunt with all her patience. "His master told him not to make a move. If I let him make a move, he would be able to tell at a glance that I am testing him. And I said the same thing as his master, so he wouldn't be sure if I was testing him or if his master really sent another one." Gu Jiao nodded in realization. "Plus, Grandaunt also speaks Zhao country's language. It's equivalent to a secret signal between the two of you. You can say that. Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly. Next, he will definitely carefully verify the authenticity of my identity. Will he believe it? Gu Jiao asked. Empress Dowager Zhuang said. He can't completely believe it, but he can't completely not believe it. He is a careful person, but because he is too careful, he will definitely verify the authenticity of my identity to eliminate the possibility that he has already been exposed. Everything was as grand and expected. After holding it in for a whole day, Little Li finally couldn't hold it in anymore. In 1 minute, he looked outside the Qilin Hall 3 times. This meant that he couldn't wait to go out. Gu Jiao was happy to make things convenient for him. She called 2 eunuchs. I don't have enough herbs. Little Li, Little Deng, you two go to the medicine shop and buy some herbs for me. I'm embarrassed to always use the Imperial Preceptor Hall's herbs. The two took the prescription she handed over and sat in the carriage to leave the Imperial Preceptor Hall. Little Li was a person who had received special training. Ordinary experts couldn't hide from his eyes. However, he would never dream that the one who was following him wasn't the expert he faced in the past, but the sky overlord, Little Jiao, who would notice a bird flying in the night sky. They couldn't even see it, okay? Little Li put some medicine in Little Deng's tea. Then, while Little Deng kept running to the toilet due to his abdominal pain, he went to a gambling house. He met a person in the backyard of the gambling house and took a pigeon that was already prepared. He dipped a brush in ink and drew 3 strokes on the pigeon's right leg. Then he released the pigeon. The pigeon flew all the way to the Imperial Palace and flew into Imperial Concubine Han's bedroom. Just as it was about to land on Imperial Concubine Han's windowsill, Little Jiao flew over and took it away. Little Jiao flew back to the Qilin Hall and threw the pigeon that had already fainted on Gu Jiao's windowsill. Little Jiao also brought back a Buddhist scripture that was pierced through by its claws. There was no useful information found on the pigeon, only 3 ink marks, which was probably a secret signal. It was quite cautious. Gu Jiao took the Buddhist scripture and went to Shang Guanyan's room. Shang Guanyan recognized that it was Imperial Concubine Han's handwriting at a glance. Gu Jiao. It turned out to be her. It's good that it's her. If Zhang Dequan had the intention to harm her, then Empress Xuanyuan's kindness would have been fed to the dogs. Regarding how to deal with Imperial Concubine Han, the 3 female Zhuge sisters had a fierce discussion in the room. It was mainly Gu Jiao and Shang Guanyan's discussion, while Great Aunt listened calmly. Shang Guanyan advocated to beat Imperial Concubine Han at her own game. When Imperial Concubine Han asked Little Li to frame her, they would counterattack. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't even lift her eyelids. Too slow. Gu Jiao took the initiative to attack. She had a hallucinogen. She could make Little Li tell the truth and confess that Imperial Concubine Han was the mastermind behind the scenes. She could also reveal the wrong information to Little Li and lead Imperial Concubine Han to jump into a trap. Empress Dowager Zhuang. It's too complicated. They didn't have much time to waste, nor many opportunities to take advantage of. They must hit Imperial Concubine Han with one blow. And the more complicated the method, the more variables there were in the middle. Empress Dowager Zhuang's meaningful gaze fell on Shang Guanyan. Shang Guanyan felt a chill in her heart. What? Empress Dowager Zhuang. Your injury has healed. Shang Guanyan. I haven't. Empress Dowager Zhuang. No, you have. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428266/10636759. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile version reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 782. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated faster. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that couldn't be found on the internet. After school today, the young princess came to the state preceptor hall again. The two little kids finished the homework assigned by Master Lu. The process was like this. Little Jing Kong did every question seriously, and the young princess drew every little tortoise seriously. Master Lu didn't dare to scold her, and he had to give her an A every time. The young princess was the first person in history to be able to make it out of the circle with tortoise skills. The little loudspeaker spirit was noisy enough, and now there was another little loudspeaker spirit. The two channels were played on a stereo loop, and the grandaunt was almost sent to the sky to stand side by side with the sun. Zhang Dequan didn't know that the Empress Dowager's soul was out of her body because of the noise. He just felt sorry for the emperor. The emperor loved the young princess so much and looked forward to seeing her every day. But a grown girl couldn't be kept at home. In the yard, Zhang Dequan said embarrassedly, "Young princess, we can't always come to the state preceptor hall." The young princess said confidently, "I'm here to visit my nephew and cousin." "What's wrong with that? Are you here to visit Prince Zhongsun and the third princess? Do you want to put down the comb in your hand before you talk?" The two little kids were grooming the horse. The Horse King had already escaped. Now the Black Wind King was lying on the ground meekly, and the two little kids were lying on its body fearlessly. "Your hair is really beautiful." The young princess was grooming the Black Wind King's mane as she said in a cute voice. The Black Wind King was very tolerant of human children. They were grooming him and he was resting. He was no longer as tense and alert as he was in the Han family. He didn't allow himself to show any signs of fatigue or weakness. No one asked him to be a war horse that would never fall. He could rest, be lazy, and enjoy the leisure time that he hadn't enjoyed for 15 years. He didn't live for his master, and he didn't live for waiting. For the rest of his life, he only lived for himself and fought for his companions. Fighting side by side wasn't a task, but a conscience. In the house, Gu Jiao finished the third figurine. She had been working on it the whole day and her eyes hurt. "Is this all right, Grandaunt?" Gu Jiao handed the little person to Empress Dowager Zhuang and asked. Great Aunt nodded and said to the old chancellor, "You still haven't finished writing?" I'm done. The old chancellor put down the brush and pasted the notes on the back of the little person. The method that his great-aunt mentioned was actually very simple, but also very crude, the Yansheng technique. It was commonly known as stabbing little people. In this feudal and superstitious era, the art of Yansheng was forbidden by the law because everyone believed in it and thought it was extremely vicious. It was similar to murder and arson, and was also sinister. "Silver needles," said his great-aunt. Gu Jiao took out a silver needle and stabbed it into the little person's body, jokingly asking, "Grandaunt, are you not afraid of stabbing Ahing to death?" Empress Dowager Zhuang calmly said, "These are not Ahing's birth characters. They are Shaoqing's." Gu Jiao. Empress Dowager Zhuang continued, "Also, this thing is useless. It's completely useless." Her tone was filled with hidden bitterness. It was as though she had personally tested it and wasted a large amount of energy only to have it end in failure. Gu Jiao was curious and asked, "How do you know? Grandaunt, have you tried it before? Who have you stabbed before?" Empress Dowager Zhuang secretly glanced at the old chancellor across from her and gently coughed. "No one." Gu Jiao took in her grandaunt's gaze and felt admiration for the son-in-law. To be able to survive under his grandaunt's methods, he really was tenacious and strong. Gu Jiao continued to make the little person. "The little person has been made. Now we just need to see how it will be placed in Imperial Concubine Han's palace." It was a dark and windy night. A small figure wearing a eunuch's uniform passed through the dog hole in the cold palace and stood up with a head full of grass. Outside the walls of the cold palace, a young man's voice sounded. "I will wait for you here." "Understood," the eunuch said. "Take care of yourself. So long-winded." The little eunuch snorted and turned away. The little eunuch swaggered in the palace until there were more and more palace people in front of him. The little eunuch's shoulders shrank and made a submissive appearance. The little eunuch came to a palace that emitted a burst of flower fragrance and knocked on the closed door. Who is it? A little palace maid came over impatiently. Nyang Nyang has already rested. Who is knocking on the door and making noise outside? The little eunuch didn't speak and just kept knocking. The little palace maid was annoyed. She removed the door latch and opened the courtyard door. She saw a petite eunuch at the door. The eunuch lowered his head, making people unable to see his appearance. The little palace maid asked, "Who are you? You dare to break into our Xianfu palace in the middle of the night?" The little eunuch still didn't speak and just faintly raised his head. Coincidentally, at this time, an older mama passed by. She suddenly saw a pair of bright phoenix eyes in the night. Her legs went soft, and she almost knelt down. The little eunuch, or to be exact, Sheng Guanyan said, "I want to see your Nyang Nyang." The mama busily went to the inner hall to report. Not long after, she turned back, dismissed the little palace maid, and politely welcomed Sheng Guanyan. All the palace people were dismissed, so the road was very quiet. Only the mama led Sheng Guanyan through the picturesque courtyard. Every Nyang Nyang in the palace has their own persona. For example, Imperial Concubine Han worships Buddha. Imperial Concubine Wang Xian plants flowers. The two people bypassed the corridor and stood in front of a room. The mama guarded the door and said to Sheng Guanyan, "Nyang Nyang is inside. Third princess, please." Sheng Guanyan entered the room. Imperial Concubine Wang Xian sat on the main seat, like the sun in the clouds. When she saw Sheng Guanyan, her eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Then she came over and gently asked Sheng Guanyan to sit down at the table. Sheng Guanyan was very polite. She waited for her to sit down first before she sat down. This was a treatment that none of the previous imperial concubines had ever received. As the crown princess, except for the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, everyone else's status was below her. Imperial concubine Wang Xian smiled. "Yener is very polite today." Sheng Guanyan said, "Today is different from the past. I am no longer the crown princess. Naturally, I can't put on the airs of a crown princess." Imperial concubine Wang Xian took a sip of tea, her eyes moved, and said, "I heard that Yener was seriously injured." Sheng Guanyan bluntly said, "To tell you the truth, I faked my injury." Imperial concubine Wang Xian was stunned. Sheng Guanyan smiled and said, "With Nyang Nyang's intelligence, you should have already guessed it, right?" Imperial concubine Wang Xian lowered her eyes. "This concubine is surprised that you have the courage to admit it in front of this concubine." Sheng Guanyan said, "I came with sincerity. Naturally, I won't hide anything from Nyang Nyang." Imperial concubine Wang Xian, "The crown prince hurt you, and the Han family tried to assassinate Qing. It's reasonable that you would find a way to dismiss this case." "I don't just want to dismiss this case." Sheng Guanyan's boldness and straightforwardness made Imperial concubine Wang Xian unable to resist. Imperial concubine Wang Xian opened her mouth. "You," Sheng Guanyan's expression suddenly became solemn. "I want to be the crown princess again. I ask Imperial concubine Wang Xian to help me." Imperial concubine Wang Xian's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise again. This concubine will put in a good word for you in front of His Majesty. But whether you can get back the position of the crown princess is not something this concubine can decide." Sheng Guanyan smiled. "Imperial concubine Wang Xian, I came with sincerity. Why do you have to hide it? Can a 10-year-old sixth prince really be more reliable than me?" Imperial concubine Wang Xian lowered her eyes and took a sip of tea. "This concubine doesn't understand what you are talking about." Sheng Guanyan faintly said. Concubine 1 was banished to the cold palace. Her 10th prince was handed over to Imperial concubine Wang Xian to raise. Imperial concubine Wang Xian has everything except for a prince who can ascend the throne. But with all due respect, compared to King Su, King Ling, and King Li, the 10th prince's combatability is not enough. Even Shang Guanqi, who has been stripped of his position as the crown prince, has a higher possibility of making a comeback than the 10th prince. Imperial concubine Wang Xian clenched her fingers under her wide sleeves. Shang Guanyan then said, The Wang family is a family that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the Han family. Unfortunately, it will never happen to eldest sister and second sister. Imperial concubine Wang Xian is very unwilling, right? Why can I be the crown prince just because I am a princess? I want to tell Imperial concubine Wang Xian that people are born different. My starting point is the end of so many brothers and sisters. Even if I am a dragon in the shallows, as long as I want to come back, I still have the greatest chance of winning. Imperial concubine Wang Xian faintly smiled. The Xianyuan family is gone. What chance do you have to win? Shang Guanyin smiled and said, I still have Imperial concubine Wang Xian. As long as Imperial concubine Wang Xian is willing to help me, I will help Imperial concubine Wang become the empress. The Wang family will be my mother's family in the future. Words are no guarantee. I will write it in writing. This temptation is too big. Imperial concubine Wang Xian didn't say anything for a long time. The incense on the table was half burnt when Imperial concubine Wang Xian asked in a low voice, What do you want me to do? Shang Guanyin took out a brocade box from her wide sleeves and put it on the table. Imperial concubine Wang Xian, please put the things in the box into Imperial concubine Han's bedroom. But do you think it's over? Not at all. Shang Guanyin turned around and went to the Qin Palace. As long as Imperial concubine Wang Xian is willing to help me, I will help Imperial concubine Wang Xian become the empress. Dong family will be my maternal family in the future. As long as Imperial concubine Wang Xian is willing to help me, I will help Imperial concubine Wang Xian become the empress. Yang family will be my maternal family in the future. Imperial concubine Wang Xian is treating me as an outsider. We will be a family in the future. Qin family will be my maternal family. I will help Imperial concubine Wang Xian become the empress. Imperial concubine Wang Xian, please rest assured. As long as you and I join hands, the position of empress and crown princess will be ours. I don't have a maternal family, so I will have to rely on the Feng family in the future. After all the little people were sent out, Shang Guanyin put her hands behind her back and took a long breath. Sure enough, shameless people are invincible in the world. Digression, the third night watch has come. Is there a monthly ticket for me to sneak in? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1063635152. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikaga Mobile Edition website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 783. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. After Shang Guanyin finished her business, she went out of the cold palace's dog hole and met with Gu Chengfeng, who had been waiting for a long time. Riding a horse or riding a carriage was too noisy. Qinggong was the best choice to make trouble in the middle of the night. Gu Chengfeng used his qinggong and brought Shang Guanyin back to the state preceptor's hall. Gu Jiao, grandaunt, and son-in-law had been waiting in Gu Jiao's room for a long time. Xiao Heng had also returned from looking at houses. Little Jing Kong washed himself clean and fell asleep on the bed. After the two entered the room, Gu Jiao first went behind the screen to check Shang Guanyan's injury. Shang Guanyan's spine had been treated with percutaneous pedicle fixation. Although the best medicine was used and the recovery was good, it was still hard to endure such a hard work. I'm fine. Shang Guanyin patted the armor on her body. This thing saves a lot of effort. Gu Jiao took off the armor and looked at her wound. The stitched area was not red and swollen. Do you have any other discomfort? Gu Jiao asked. No. She was just a little tired. Shang Guanyin didn't say this. Everyone was sparing no expense for the common cause. So what if she was a little tired and in pain? It was worth it. Shang Guanyin wanted to put on the armor but was stopped by Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao said, "Go back to your room and rest. You can't sit or stand anymore." "I want to listen." Shang Guanyin refused to leave. She wanted to join in the fun. She was born with a lively personality. After being locked in the imperial mausoleum for so many years, she didn't feel at home for a long time. She wanted to be with everyone. Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, "Then you can squeeze with little Jing Kong first. After we finish talking, Aheng will send you back to your room. But you have to be careful of him kicking you." Little Jing Kong's sleeping posture was very strange. Sometimes he was as obedient as a silkworm. Sometimes he was like an invincible little king of destruction. I know. In any case, she had some skills. Shang Guanyin lay down on the bed behind the screen, and Gu Jiao put down the curtain for her. Through the curtains and screens, she told him about how she had sent the servant to the palace. Although Gu Qingfeng already knew about the plan, when he heard the entire process, he still felt that this operation was simply too outrageous. Even in their dreams, those imperial concubines never expected that Shang Guanyin would say the exact same lines to everyone. He even wrote a letter as a pledge. How sincere. But will they really take the bait? Gu Qingfeng was very worried that these people would shrink back at the last minute or sense that something was wrong. Grandaunt said indifferently, "They are on guard against each other and won't exchange information, so we can't expose them. As for taking the bait, after casting so many nets, there were bound to be a few fish on the net. What's more, the temptation of being the empress is too great." Empress Zhao's position in Zhao country was stable, and the crown prince had the support of Marquis Xianping. There was basically no possibility of being shaken, so the court was still stable. Gu Qingfeng came to Great Yan and realized that a harem could be so bloody. "I still don't understand. Concubine Wang Xian and Chen Jiaoyi will be tempted. After all, they don't have any princes. Supporting the third princess to the throne is the best way for them to consolidate their power. But don't the other three have adult princes?" Xiao Heng said, "First, they will support Shang Guanyin to the throne. Then, they will use Shang Guanyan's hand to become the empress. Then, they will wait for an opportunity to depose Shang Guanyin. As the empress, their sons will be the legitimate sons, so it's only right for them to inherit the throne." Empress Dowager Zhuang nodded. "And that's the truth." Gu Qingfeng was shocked. So they are still using each other. There were no simple women in the harem. Whoever lived longer depended on who had deep thoughts. Empress Dowager Zhuang yawned. "Okay, go to sleep. The next thing is their business. They will worry about what to do and whether they can succeed or not." Oh. Gu Jiao stood up, went to clean up the table, and prepared to go to bed. "Then I will come back tomorrow," Xiao Heng whispered to her. Gu Jiao nodded and curved her lips. "See you tomorrow." The old chancellor also got up and left. "This old man is also tired. I will go back to my room to rest." Gu Qingfeng looked at everyone leaving one by one with a dumbfounded expression. "No, you are just going to leave like this? Are you not going to worry more? Are you so careless?" Gu Jiao said, "Great aunt, you go to sleep first. I will go to Gu Changqing's place tonight." Empress Dowager Zhuang waved her hand. "I know you can go." Gu Qingfeng fell into deep self-doubt. Is there something wrong with me? Or is there something wrong with you? Xianfu Palace. Concubine Wang Xian, with her long hair and silk pajamas, sat quietly in front of the windowsill. Nyang Nyang. Lu Mama came over with a candlelight. Lu Mama was the one who recognized Shang Guanyin. She was concubine Wang Xian's personal maidservant. She has been serving concubine Wang Xian since she was 11 or 12 years old. She can be said to be concubine Wang Xian's most trusted maidservant. Chuanxiu, what do you think of tonight's matter? Concubine Wang Xian asked. Lu Mama gently put the candlelight on the windowsill and thought for a while. It's hard to say. Concubine Wang Xian said. There is nothing between you and me that can't be said. What is in your heart, just say it. Lu Mama said. This slave thinks that third princess is different from before. She has changed a lot, even more than the rumors. Concubine Wang Xian's eyes flashed with a trace of approval. This concubine also thinks so. Her performance tonight is too scheming. Lu Mama looked at concubine Wang Xian. But Nyang Nyang still decided to give it a try, didn't you? Lu Mama is the person who knows concubine Wang Xian the best in the world. She knows what concubine Wang Xian is thinking. Concubine Wang Xian did not deny it. She is indeed a more suitable candidate than the sixth prince. She is more likely to help me ascend the throne. Hearing this, Lu Mama knew that concubine Wang Xian had made up her mind. She no longer refuted and dissuaded her. Instead, she asked, "But it is not so easy to get imperial concubine Han." Concubine Wang Xian said lightly, "If it was easy, she would not have come to me. She could do it herself." Thinking of something, Lu Mama asked puzzledly, "All the aristocratic families participated in the framing of the Xianyuan family. Why did she target the Han family?" Concubine Wang Xian sneered. "Isn't it the crown prince who started it first? It's okay to send someone to assassinate her in the imperial mausoleum, but he also sent someone from the Han family to assassinate her son. It's not normal for her to swallow this." Lu Mama nodded. "The crown prince is too hasty. Sheng Guanqing is a dying man. What's the need to deal with him?" Concubine Wang Xian looked at the moonlight outside the window. "The crown prince is worried that Sheng Guanqing will use the emperor's sympathy to help the crown princess before he dies, right? Otherwise, concubine Wang Xian could not think of why the crown prince would target the eldest grandson of the emperor. Well, let's not talk about this." Concubine Wang Xian looked at the agreement on the table. It not only contained the transaction between the two, but also their signatures. This was a shady transaction, but it was also a binding transaction. She said, "The person we planted in the Yi Palace can start." Lu Mama hesitated for a moment and said, "Nyang Nyang, that's our biggest trump card. Do you really want to use it in this matter? Once it's exposed, we can no longer monitor the movements of the Yi Palace." Concubine Wang Xian picked up the agreement written by Sheng Guanyan and said lightly, "As long as imperial concubine Han is gone, there's no need to monitor the Yi Palace, right?" The next day, concubine Wang Xian started her plan. She asked Lu Mama to find the chess piece planted in the Yi Palace. That chess piece, like Little Li, was also a spy who had been planted for many years. Imperial concubine Han always thought that she was the smartest, but sometimes the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. However, imperial concubine Han was very cautious. Even after several years, that chess piece still couldn't gain her full trust. But this kind of thing didn't need to be imperial concubine Han's first confidant to do. "Do you understand Nyang Nyang's instructions?" Behind the rockery, Lu Mama handed him a long brocade box in her wide sleeve. The eunuch accepted it, kicked it back into his sleeve, and whispered, "Nyang Nyang, please rest assured. This slave will definitely do this well. Nyang Nyang, please treat this slave's family well afterwards." Lu Mama solemnly said, "Don't worry, Nyang Nyang will." The eunuch looked around vigilantly, and carefully returned to the Yi Palace. On the other side, concubine Dong and the others also began their own actions. Concubine Dong didn't have a spy in the Yi Palace, but the intelligence controlled by the Dong family was no less than that of concubine Wang Xian. She communicated with the Dong family, and borrowed an expert from the Dong family. The female bodyguard who accompanied the expert said, "Family head said that imperial concubine Han has a very powerful aide. We have to avoid him." Concubine Dong sarcastically said, "Is she so unscrupulous? She actually lets an outsider enter her bedroom." The female bodyguard said, "That person is not often in the palace. He only comes to discuss with imperial concubine Han when he has something to do." Concubine Dong lightly said, "Well, do as you see fit. This concubine doesn't care what method you use. In short, you have to put this thing in imperial concubine Han's bedroom." On the first day, there was no movement from the palace. On the second day, there was still no movement from the palace. Gu Qingfeng finally couldn't help but sneak into the state preceptor hall at night. He couldn't help but ask Gu Jiao, "Do you think they made a move? Why is there still no news?" They must have made a move. As for whether they succeeded or not, It depended on whether they had the ability to do so. As the saying goes, man proposes, God disposes. On the fourth day, the king accompanied the young royal princess to the state preceptor hall to visit Xiaoheng and Shang Guanyan. Not long after sitting down, Zhang Dequan came over with a panicked expression. Your Majesty, something happened in the palace. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428266/10634937. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 784. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are available here. At this time, the king was sitting in front of Shang Guanyan's bed. The little princess and little Jing Kong had already gone to cause trouble for little Shi. In addition to him, there was only Shang Guanyan, who closed her eyes and pretended to be dead, and Xiaoheng, who accompanied her. One was unconscious, and the other was not going to live for long. They were not outsiders. The king's face sank and asked, "What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry?" It's. Zhang Dequan was afraid of those few words and couldn't say it out loud. The king said in a deep voice, "I forgive you, speak." Yes. Zhang Dequan braced himself and told the whole story. It turned out that the sixth prince was flying a kite in the palace today. While flying, the kite broke and flew into imperial concubine Han's bedroom. The sixth prince went to ask for his kite. After all, he was a prince. Of course, he couldn't just stand outside the door. He went in to greet imperial concubine Han. After that, when the palace servants were looking for the kite, they accidentally found a strange thing in the flowers. The sixth prince was young and curious. He ran over and asked the palace servants to dig it out. Who would have thought that it was a little person full of silver needles? Judging from the situation at the scene, the little person was buried under the ground. However, because of the heavy rain a few days ago, the soil was washed away, causing the little person to be exposed. Piercing the little person, the king's eyes flashed with a trace of danger. Return to the palace. Xiaoheng got up and looked at the king with concern. Imperial grandfather, I will accompany you to the palace. The king thought for a moment and didn't refuse. Take good care of the little princess. The king left Zhang Dequan and returned to the palace with Xiaoheng. The matter was very big. The scene was surrounded by imperial concubine Wang Xian. Although imperial concubine Han was in charge of the Phoenix Seal, this matter was related to her future. Imperial concubine Wang Xian directly called the people of the rearguard commandery. The rearguard commandery was the most special yamen in the outer court. It was directly under the king's jurisdiction. Although they were not allowed to break into the harem, if the emperor's safety was threatened, they could enter first and report later. The king had arrived. At this moment, some concubines who were watching the show had also arrived. Xiaoheng did not bow to these imperial concubines. Whether it was Shang Guanyan or the crown princess, he was now the only imperial grandson of Empress Xianyuan. Except for the emperor and empress, he did not need to bow to anyone. Where is it? The king asked. Wang Xianfei winked at Lu Mama. Mama, give the things to His Majesty. Yes. Lu Mama held a handkerchief with both hands. On the handkerchief, there was a little person dug out from the flowers. The sixth prince nestled in Wang Xianfei's arms in fear. He didn't understand why he was just looking for a kite. How could he make such a big scene? Imperial father looked very unhappy. Mother, I'm scared. He whispered. Don't be afraid. Wang Xianfei caressed his head and comforted him softly. But in his heart he secretly said, Fortunately, I chose Shangguanyan. The sixth prince is so timid. After all, it will be difficult for him to take on a big responsibility. Of course, she didn't hate the sixth prince. After all, she didn't have a son. It wasn't bad to have an obedient sixth prince by her side. Xiao Heng directly took the little person. Your Highness. Lu Mama was shocked. The king also frowned. Don't touch this kind of unlucky thing. It doesn't matter. Xiao Heng said indifferently. Ha. He unintentionally turned the little person over and saw a line of words written on the back of the cloth. He asked with a puzzled look, Imperial Grandfather, isn't this your birth date? Naturally, the king saw it. His face sank to the extreme. Where was it found? Who found it? Lu Mama pointed to the grass not far away that was surrounded by Wang Xianfei's people and respectfully said, It was found there. His Highness the Sixth Prince's kite fell there. His Highness the Sixth Prince's servant, Zhang En, and Xiaosheng from Guyi Palace went to look for the kite. They found it together. One was Wang Xianfei's person, and the other was Imperial Concubine Han's person. There was no possibility of someone framing them at the scene. The king looked coldly at Imperial Concubine Han. Imperial Concubine, what else do you have to say? Imperial Concubine Han, who had been stepped on by little Jing Kong a few days ago and had yet to recover, limped to the king, knelt down and saluted. Your Majesty, I'm innocent. I didn't know anything. Your Majesty. Xiao Heng was not in a hurry to interrupt. This was because he was very confident in his imperial grandfather's ability to fill in the blanks. His imperial grandfather's imagination must be better than his. The king looked at her coldly. You mean someone sneaked into your palace and framed you for practicing the Yansheng technique? Imperial Concubine Han gritted her teeth and looked at Wang Xianfei. It must be. Wang Xianfei raised her hand to protect the sixth prince, who was so scared that he crawled into her arms and said lightly, Imperial Concubine, why are you looking at me and the sixth prince? Do you think I'm framing you? Imperial Concubine Han said coldly, What a coincidence, the sixth prince's kite fell at my door. What a coincidence, the sixth prince's kite broke in my garden. Wang Xianfei's attitude was so good that there was no trace of guilt on her face. Who doesn't know that your Guyi palace is heavily guarded? Even if I wanted to, I don't have the ability. Imperial Concubine, I advise you to quickly admit your guilt. There are so many people in your palace, and not all of them are stubborn. You can interrogate them eventually. Instead of going to prison and suffering, it's better to admit your guilt obediently. Maybe His Majesty will be lenient and give you a lighter sentence. As she spoke, the king's eyes inadvertently swept over and caught a glimpse of a trembling figure hiding behind the people. The king raised his hand and pointed. Bring him here. The guards of the rearguard commandery strode forward and pulled the eunuch out. The eunuch knelt on the ground, trembling like a sieve. With such a guilty and trembling appearance, no one would believe that there was no ghost. Tell the truth. The king shouted. It's this servant who buried it. He stammered. It's Imperial Concubine, using this servant's family to threaten this servant. This servant didn't dare to disobey. Imperial Concubine Han's expression suddenly changed. Kneeling on the ground, she straightened her body and pinched her handkerchief to point at the eunuch. Feng Yusheng, this concubine has treated you well. Why are you slandering this concubine? The eunuch called Feng Yusheng kowtowed to her and cried, Imperial Concubine, please let this servant's family go. This servant begs you. This servant is willing to apologize with death. But please forgive this servant's family. After saying that, without waiting for Imperial Concubine Han to speak, he suddenly got up and banged his head on the rockery. Of course he had to die. Otherwise, if he went to prison and was tortured to extort a confession, it would be bad if Imperial Concubine Wang Xian was exposed. Imperial Concubine Wang Xian couldn't hide her disappointment. Imperial Concubine, you and His Majesty have been together for so many years. Just because His Majesty deposed the Crown Prince, you hold a grudge against His Majesty and use Yansheng's technique to frame His Majesty? Imperial Concubine, your heart is too cruel. Xiao Heng, everyone in the harem knows how to act. Speaking of which, there were so many little people. Was Imperial concubine Wang Xian the only one who succeeded? He didn't feel that there were too few little people exposed. He was simply curious. Unexpectedly, just as this thought flashed through his mind, he saw a puppy raised by Imperial concubine Han carrying a little person over. Imperial concubine Han only raised the puppy for a few days before she didn't like it and gave it to the servants to raise. They hadn't seen each other for many days. She didn't expect to meet again in such a desperate situation. Imperial concubine Wang Xian frowned. What was going on? Why did another little person come? Didn't she only give Feng Disheng a little person? This little person was Imperial concubine Dong's masterpiece. Imperial concubine Dong's experts lurked in the palace for 2 days before waiting for the right time. It wasn't enough to just bury the little person. They had to expose the little person. Imperial concubine Wang Xian chose to use the 6th prince, while Imperial concubine Dong targeted Imperial concubine Han's dog. The little person was buried with the bones. It wasn't buried deep, so the dog could dig it out with a few scratches. Imperial concubine Dong originally wanted to visit Imperial concubine Han, so that she could discover the Yansheng technique on the spot. However, Imperial concubine Wang Xian led the people of the rearguard commandery to surround Imperial concubine Han's palace. Imperial concubine Dong inquired about it. The palace people said that Imperial concubine Han was using the Yansheng technique in the palace. Imperial concubine Dong thought that her little person was accidentally discovered by Imperial concubine Wang Xian and the 6th prince. This was a good thing. It saved her the trouble of coming forward. This little person had Sheng Guanyan's birth date written on it. The monarch's face became even darker. He clenched his fists and trembled with anger. Very good, Imperial concubine, you're very good. Guards, search for her. I want to see how many dirty things are hidden in this poisonous woman's palace. Yes. The guards of the rearguard commandery responded. The guards found 7 or 8 little people in Imperial concubine Han's palace in one breath. Why were there 7 or 8? One of them was only half a person. The corner of Xiao Heng's mouth twitched. This is too much. Gu Jiao Jiao, didn't you say that you wouldn't add drama? Gu Jiao, it's little Jiao Humph. 3 days ago, Sheng Guanyan found a total of 5 Imperial concubines. Among them, Imperial concubine Wang Xian, Imperial concubine Dong, and Imperial concubine Feng successfully put the little people in Imperial concubine Han's palace. Imperial concubine Chen Shu and Imperial concubine Yang De both failed. However, this didn't affect the 2 of them from coming to watch the fun. The 2 of them arrived at the same time as Imperial concubine Dong and Imperial concubine Feng. Imperial concubine Feng saluted the 3 of them. The 3 of them politely greeted each other. After a set of tedious and artificial etiquette, the 4 of them went to Imperial concubine Han's small garden. When they saw the 7.5 little people on the stone table, their expressions suddenly froze. Imperial concubine Feng, Imperial concubine Dong, Imperial concubine Wang Xian. I only put 1 little person. Imperial concubine Chen Shu, Imperial concubine Yang De. I obviously didn't put it in. The 5 of them were simply dumbfounded. Imperial concubine Han was also dumbfounded. Imperial concubine Wang Xian, are you crazy? Do you need so many little people to frame me? Also, how did you put them in? Digression, little Jyotsundra, chirp. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1063477704. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 785. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. If Imperial Concubine Han hadn't planted a spy in the Qilin Hall first, they could have dealt with her later. The sky wanted to rain, the mother wanted to get married, and the Imperial Concubine wanted to court death. There was nothing that could be done. After the monarch issued the decree to abolish the Imperial Concubine, he left with Xiao Heng with a cold expression. Wang Xianfei and the others also left the Guiyi Palace after sending the monarch off. Wang Xianfei asked the palace maid to bring the sixth prince back first. When a noble lady fell, it meant that the position of Guifei was empty. The other imperial concubines did not need to be promoted to Guifei, but Feng Zhaoyi's position made her very eager to enter Guiyi Palace. But today, Feng Zhaoyi was not in the mood to think about conferring the title of imperial concubine. Her mind was filled with those little people. She couldn't figure out why there were so many of them. Also, how could it be so coincidental that Imperial Concubine Han's letter of usurping the throne was also dug out as soon as the little one was discovered? Everything was too coincidental. Don't you guys feel that there's something strange about what happened today? Just as Feng Zhaoyi was puzzled, Imperial Concubine Dong opened her mouth. In the Imperial harem, the Empress was the most respected. Below her were the Imperial noble consorts, the noble virtuous and virtuous consorts. However, Consort Dong was originally a second-rank consort. Because the positions of the four consorts had been filled, the monarch made an exception and granted her the title of Consort Chen, which was also a first-rank consort. Consort Dong voiced out the doubts in their hearts. Only the 5 imperial concubines who had an alliance with Shangguan Yin would have this feeling. The rest of the imperial concubines didn't know the cause and effect. They just thought that Imperial Concubine Han really did something like stabbing a villain and writing an imperial edict. Chen Fei, do you feel that something is strange? Wang Xianfei asked. Unrelated people wouldn't find it strange. Only the person who framed Imperial Concubine Han with the little one would think that the imperial edict and letter were also framing. It was as if this was originally a perfect plan, and burying a villain in Imperial Concubine Han's palace was just one of the moves. Consort Wang Xian was testing Consort Dong. How could Consort Dong Chen not want to test the other consorts? Don't you think there are too many villains? She asked. Then how many do you think it should be? Chen Shufei asked. None of them were fools. After a while, who wouldn't be able to discern the underlying meaning? But no one was willing to say that number. Wang Xianfei said. How about this? I'll count to 3, and everyone will say it together. At this point, I believe that no one is a fool, and don't treat others as fools. The few of them looked at each other. Consort Dong thought for a moment. Okay, I agree. Chen Shufei and Yang Defei nodded in agreement. The first-rank imperial concubines all agreed, but the fourth-rank Feng Zhaoyi naturally had no reason to not follow the crowd. Wang Xianfei took a deep breath and slowly said, 1, 2, 3. 1. 1. 1. No. No. The ones who said no were Consort Chen Shu and Consort Yangda, while the ones who said 1 were Consort Wang Xian, Consort Dong, and Feng Zhaoyi. As soon as the voice fell, the faces of the several people changed subtly. Consort Wang Xian frowned and pinched her fingers. She gritted her teeth and said, Well, the next question will be answered by the 3 of us. Where was the little one found? Again, let's count to 3. Consort Dong and Feng Zhaoyi became nervous and nodded. Consort Wang Xian, 1, 2, 3. In the flowers. Next to the doghouse. Under the bed. Consort Wang Xian's trusted eunuch buried the little one in the flowers. Consort Dong's expert placed the little one near the doghouse. Feng Zhaoyi loved to curry favor with Imperial Concubine Han. When she had the chance to get close to Imperial Concubine Han, she personally threw the little one under Imperial Concubine Han's bed. Now that the confrontation had reached this point, who wouldn't have the slightest bit of confidence in their hearts? Consort Wang Xian's eyes turned cold. Are you? Consort Dong looked at her. Are you? Consort Wang Xian thought, of course I am. But I didn't expect you to be the same. Consort Wang Xian's breath trembled. She held the last glimmer of hope and solemnly looked at the other 4 people. I think everyone already knows, but I also understand the scruples in everyone's heart. There are some things that you are still afraid of exposing yourself. So, let me say it first. This kind of thing needed someone to take the lead. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to find any substantial evidence even if they matched the secret code for a long time. Shang Guanyan is pretending. She was not stabbed by the assassin. Consort Wang Xian's voice fell. Seeing that the others were not shocked, she suppressed her anger and said, "She also came to find you, didn't she?" Her anger was not directed at Consort Dong and the others, but at the matter itself. None of the four people spoke, but the reaction of the four people said it all. Among these people, Consort Wang Xian was the oldest. She entered the palace around the same time as Empress Xianyuan and Imperial concubine Han, followed by Consort Yangda, then Consort Dong and Consort Chen. As for Feng Zhaoyi, she was relatively young. She just turned 30 this year. Age and seniority destined Consort Wang Xian to be the leader of these people. Consort Wang Xian had never suffered such a great humiliation in her life. She didn't lose to Imperial concubine Han because she didn't have a son. This was her biggest weakness. Otherwise, how could Imperial concubine Han be in charge of the 6 palaces? Consort Wang Xian's eyes once again swept to the four people and angrily said, "Don't pretend to be mute one by one. It's useless." That hateful Shang Guanyan. Consort Dong finally couldn't bear the shame in her heart. She gritted her teeth and pinched off a flower that was blooming next to her. After Consort Dong broke her silence, Consort Chen also stomped her feet in anger. Shameless. Shameless. I knew she didn't have good intentions. This was after the horse's back. Why didn't they notice it at the time? Wasn't the temptation of the Empress position too great that it made them dizzy? Empress Xianyuan had died of illness for many years, and the position of Empress had been empty for a long time. The desire in the hearts of the concubines grew day by day. Just like addicts who saw the addictive drug, they couldn't control themselves. They regretted it now, but what was the use of regret? Didn't they become the knives in Shang Guanyan's hands, and Imperial concubine Han was defeated? Consort Yangda doubtfully said, "But among the 5 of us, only 3 of us succeeded in putting the little ones in your palace. How did the other little ones come in? There are also those 2 letters, they are also very suspicious." Consort Dong snorted. She must have found someone else. Consort Chen Shufei was furious. Too shameless. Consort Wang lightly said, "Forget it, let's not care about the others. They are just pawns used by Shang Guanyan. If they want to swallow their anger and suffer in silence, let them be. But this consort can't swallow this anger. I don't know what sisters think." Consort Dong asked, "What is Sister Consort Xian going to do?" "In order to gain our trust, she left something in our hands." Consort Wang Xian said and paused. "I'm not the only one who has her letter of commitment, right?" At this point, there was nothing to hide. Consort Dong sternly said, "I have it too." "Me too." Consort Yangda and Consort Chen Shufei said in unison. Consort Wang Xian looked at Feng Zhaoyi. Feng Zhaoyi turned around and took out the letter of commitment from the very private compartment of her underwear. In black and white, the transaction between Shang Guanyan and Feng Zhaoyi was written, as well as the signatures and fingerprints of the 2 people. Looking at the same letter in their hands, several people trembled in anger. They couldn't wait to tear Shang Guanyan into pieces. Consort Wang said, "It seems that everyone has it in their hands. This is easy. Let's expose her together." Feng Zhaoyi was helpless. "How do we expose her? Do we use this letter?" "But we also have our own signatures on the agreement. Who said we're going to use this? Don't you remember that her injury was fake? As long as we take His Majesty to check the injury, her crime of deceiving the Emperor will be confirmed. She can't escape the crime of framing the Crown Prince." Consort Yangda was silent for a moment. "But in this way, won't the Crown Prince be restored?" Consort Wang Xian didn't have a son. Anyway, she can't compete for that position. But she has a prince. She doesn't want to see the Crown Prince make a comeback. Consort Dong and Consort Chen also have the same idea. Consort Wang Xian stared at several people with resentment. "What Crown Prince's throne? Han Shi just committed the crime of rebellion. Her mother's debt must be paid by her son. How can the crown prince make a comeback in such a short time? Today we've been busy for a long time. I think everyone is tired. Let's go back and rest. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to see His Majesty and ask him to visit the third princess. When we arrive at the State Preceptor Hall, we'll act according to the circumstances. Several people returned to the palace. Lu Mama followed Consort Wang Xian and whispered, "Nyang Nyang, are you really going to expose the third princess?" "How is that possible?" Consort Wang Xian lightly said. "This consort was just testing them to see if Shang Guanyin also made a deal with them." Lu Mama wondered. "Then why do you want us to see His Majesty tomorrow morning?" Consort Wang Xian sneered. "That's just a delaying tactic. You go and prepare. This consort will go out of the palace." Lu Mama was surprised. "Nyang Nyang," Consort Wang Xian sternly said. "This matter must be done by this consort herself." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428266/1063266666. HTML Genius. Remember this site's address: www.zhhbqg.com. Bikugo Mobile Edition website: mzhhbqg.com. Chapter 786. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. The Imperial Preceptor's Hall was brightly lit. Imperial concubine Han had fallen, so there was no need to keep the spy. Gu Jiao asked him to break something casually, and then asked someone to send him back to the palace. Regardless of whether Zhang Dequan doubted him or not, he would not use such a careless eunuch who was sent back to the palace. The old chancellor was asking Xiao Heng about the situation of the top 10 aristocratic families. Empress Dowager Zhuang was holding the jar and eating today's candied fruit very carefully. Gu Jiao got up and said, "I'm going to cook." There was a chef in the Imperial Preceptor's Hall, but she wanted to cook a hometown dish for her family. Empress Dowager Zhuang said angrily, "Come back. Who wants to eat the food you cook?" "It was so hot to go into the kitchen on a hot day," Gu Jiao said. "But didn't you say you wanted to eat Zhao state dishes at noon?" "I just said it casually." Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at the old chancellor. "You go." The old chancellor didn't want to go. "There is a chef in the Imperial Preceptor's Hall. Why are you?" "I'll go," Xiao Heng said. He also knew how to cook Zhao state dishes. The old chancellor was shocked. He waved his hand and stood up. "You can't go. I'll cook." Xiao Heng. In order not to eat his disciples' dark cuisine, the old chancellor went to the kitchen to cook under the hot weather. Little Commandery Princess went back to the palace. Little Jing Kong was led by Gu Chengfeng to buy sugar-coated haws on the street. Only Gu Jiao, Empress Dowager Zhuang and Xiao Heng were left in the room. Gu Jiao hummed and said, "Great aunt, after what happened in Han Shi's palace today, the fact that the third princess has a bunch of imperial mothers should have been exposed. What will they do?" In fact, if there were only her and Xiao Heng, they would also think about it. But with grandaunt and son-in-law here, they could slack off. Empress Dowager Zhuang said calmly, "They will come." Speak of the devil. A disciple from the Imperial Preceptor Hall came to the Qilin Hall and cupped his hands toward Xiao Heng. "Prince Changsun, there are two people outside. They said that they were sent by His Majesty to visit the third princess." Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao exchanged a look. Empress Dowager Zhuang nodded slightly. Xiao Heng said to the disciples of the State Preceptor Hall, "Let them in." Yes. Less than half a quarter of an hour later, a eunuch and a person dressed like a nanny arrived at the Qilin Hall. In the corridor, the nanny lowered her head, and her figure was blocked by the eunuch. The eunuch looked at the little palace maid guarding Shangguan Yan's door, and said with a pleasant expression, "We are here to deliver clothes to third princess. Is His Highness Zhongsun not here?" The little maid said, "His Highness just went to the toilet." This was perfect. He did not have to find an excuse to send His Highness Zhongsun away. The eunuch smiled. "Then I'll pay my respects to His Highness Zhongsun later. Can I go in and see the third princess?" "Okay." The little palace maid Huaner stepped aside. The eunuch and the nanny entered the room. After a while, the eunuch's voice came from the room. "It seems that it doesn't fit. You measure the third princess's size and make a few new ones. I'll wait for you outside." After that, he went out of the room and smiled at Huaner. "I'm a little thirsty. Can you pour me a glass of water?" "Gong gong, please wait a moment." Huaner was successfully sent away. Inside the room, the nanny went behind the screen and coldly looked at the closed curtain. "Don't pretend, third princess. Come out quickly." There was a sound of movement inside the mosquito net. The curtain was lifted, and Shangguan Yan's smiling face came out. "Wang Xianfei, I haven't seen you for 3 days. How have you been?" Wang Xianfei coldly snorted. "You're not calling me mother so soon?" Shangguan Yan asked back. "Do you deserve it?" Wang Xianfei was so angry that she leaned back. She was really a ruthless person who kicked her aside after using her. Wang Xianfei arrogantly said, "Shangguan Yan, don't be complacent too early. I already know all the things you've done, and the rest of the people also know your face. Tomorrow morning, everyone will come with His Majesty to check your injuries. At that time, I'm afraid you won't even be able to cry." Shangguan Yan raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is that so? Then Wang Xianfei came all the way here to remind me. You don't want to see me cry?" Wang Xianfei's eyes were cold. "Shangguan Yan, don't talk nonsense. You have so many things in our hands. Once it's exposed, your end will only be more miserable than before. Now only I can save you." Shangguan Yan asked. "Why do you want to save me?" Wang Xianfei said. "I want to make a deal with you. As long as you continue to fulfill your original promise, I have a way to solve tomorrow's crisis for you." Shangguan Yan didn't ask what she could do, but smiled faintly. "I just cheated you, and you still dare to come to me to make a deal? Are you soaked in the rain too much that your brain is flooded with water?" Shangguan Yan's words could really anger a person to death. Wang Xianfei took a deep breath and spent a lot of effort to resist the urge to stab her to death. Wang Xianfei said with a strong aura, "I dare to come here. I'm not afraid of you betraying me, because you have no other choice." Shangguan Yan narrowed her eyes. "It sounds very reasonable. What does Wang Xianfei want me to do?" Seeing that Shangguan Yan was still reasonable, Wang Xianfei's expression became slightly better. "It's very simple. In the middle of the night, you pretend to be in a situation. When the news reaches the palace, I will come with His Majesty to visit you. At that time, you just need to open your eyes, take my hand, and call me Imperial Mother." Shangguan Yan looked at her strangely. "You want me to pretend to be crazy?" Wang Xianfei coldly snorted. "You even pretended to have amnesia. What's the point of pretending to be crazy?" Shangguan Yan raised an eyebrow. "What if His Majesty doesn't believe me?" Wang Xianfei's face sank. "That's your business. If you can't make His Majesty believe you, then tomorrow morning, you will be exposed. This old witch wants me to recognize her as my imperial mother. She can even think of such a thing." Shangguan Yan put on her shoes, got out of bed, and slowly came to the window. She looked at Wang Xianfei meaningfully. "Wang Xianfei's condition is very tempting. I personally want to agree, but I don't know if these people will agree." After saying that, she pushed open the window. Wang Xianfei took a closer look and saw Consort Dong, Consort Yang, Consort Chen, and Feng Jiaoyi hiding outside the window. The 4 people didn't expect Shangguan Yan to open the window without saying anything. They were caught off guard and were collectively dumbfounded. Wang Xianfei was also stunned. 10 eyes met. At the epic-level large-scale social death scene. "Why are you here?" It took Wang Xianfei a long time to find her voice. Shangguan Yan was happy to watch a good show. She crossed her arms and calmly looked at Consort Dong and the others. Consort Dong cleared her throat and asked, We also want to ask you, didn't you say that you will go to His Majesty tomorrow morning to report this shameless person? You are just stalling for time so that you can come and make a deal with her. Shang Guanyin glanced at her. Hey, pay attention to your words. Who is shameless? Are you guys shameless? You guys can't wait to sell out your teammates. This is your so-called alliance? It's ridiculous. Aren't you? Wang Xianfei coldly asked. We. Consort Dong's face turned red and looked at Feng Jiaoyi. She came first. Feng Jiaoyi's body shook. I am the third. When I came, Consort Shu and Consort Da were already hiding outside the window. Consort Da came first. Consort Chen Shu decisively sold out Consort Yang. Halfway through her deal with Shang Guanyin, she heard someone coming from the palace. She climbed out of the window to hide, only to see Consort Yang standing in front of her. God knows what kind of mood she was in at that time. Then Feng Jiaoyi came. When Feng Jiaoyi climbed out of the window, Shi Yi experienced a wave of shock. Then came Consort Dong and Consort Wang. Consort Wang's whole body was not good. She was so angry that she could see stars. It was obviously her plan, but how did she become the slowest one? There has never been a stupid woman in the harem. Even if there were, they would have died long ago. Who could hold on until now? They were tricked by Shang Guanyin because they didn't expect that Shang Guanyin would win by a surprise move. In addition, Shang Guanyin knew them very well. But because Shang Guanyin had been in the imperial tomb for more than 10 years, her temperament had changed greatly. She was no longer the crown princess they were familiar with. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win 100 battles. This sentence was not unreasonable. We don't want infighting. Consort Wang calmed down and stabilized the overall situation. Everyone wants to be the empress, but it seems that no one can do it. It's better to take a step back and think about how to get revenge. Of course, if you are willing to be played by Shang Guanyin, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Consort Dong sarcastically said. You don't want to send us away and play some tricks behind our backs, do you? You said it like you didn't play any tricks? Each one of you is more impatient than me, and you still have the face to mock me? Consort Wang suppressed her anger. She didn't want to fight with Consort Dong at this juncture. She seriously said, let's go to the palace together and invite His Majesty. Don't say that we have seen her. Her testimony alone is not enough to convince us. Think of a way to let His Majesty see her injury. The four people were silent. At this point, they certainly understood that the deal with Shang Guanyin would not work. They were the 5 dignified imperial concubines, but they were played by a junior. They really couldn't swallow this. Good, I agree. Consort Chen Shufei was the first to express her opinion. I also agree. Immediately after, Feng Jiaoyi and Consort Yang also expressed their opinion. Consort Dong impatiently frowned. You all agreed. What else can I do? All right, let's go back to the palace. Shang Guanyin slowly said. Are you sure you want to leave like this? Consort Wang warned. Shang Guanyin, don't even think about doing anything to us here. Our people are not to be trifled with. If we really go to His Majesty, we can just say that we were worried about you and secretly went out of the palace to visit you. You won't get any benefits. Shang Guanyin took out a stack of paper from her wide sleeve and patted it on her palm, saying, It seems that you don't care about this. The several people subconsciously turned their heads and looked at the paper in her hand. Shang Guanyin was afraid that they couldn't see it clearly, so she specially showed them one. The several people's pupils shrank. Consort Dong was stunned. Yes, this is the letter of commitment I wrote to the several imperial concubines. It's written in black and white. If you help me overthrow Imperial Concubine Han, I will help you ascend to the position of the Empress. Consort Feng hurriedly took out the letter that she carried with her. Don't look at it. The one in your hand is fake. The one in my hand is the real one. If you don't believe me, you can compare the fingerprint on it. Consort Feng looked at the guide she pressed on it. She pressed it with her right thumb. Her right thumb had a dough pattern, commonly known as a snail. But on this piece of paper, the fingerprint that should belong to her was a dustpan. It was indeed different. The story of the matter was like this. Xiaoheng first secretly got the handwriting of the several imperial concubines from the State Preceptor Hall's library, and let Shangguan Yin write 5 letters of commitment in advance. Then he let the old chancellor imitate the handwriting of the several imperial concubines to sign, and put their fingerprints on it. Most people wouldn't compare their fingerprints after the event. After all, they had signed in front of them. Who would have thought that Shangguan Yan's hand would be so fast that she would secretly replace it under their noses? In fact, if it was just a few little people, little Joe could do it. Why would he let Shangguan Yan find these imperial concubines at night? Empress Dowager Zhuang was not a woman who only limited her sight to the harem. She was the regent Empress Dowager, who commanded the court. From the beginning, she wasn't just scheming against Imperial Concubine Han. Imperial Concubine Han was just a convenience. What she really wanted was these big fishes from the aristocratic families. Imperial Concubine Wang sneered. Shangguan Yan, even if you took this evidence, so what? Prove that we are in cahoots with you? Aren't you also involved? Shangguan Yan smiled faintly. But I'm not afraid of death. Are you not afraid? Imperial Concubine Dong was angry. You. Shangguan Yan's smile faded and her eyes were a little bit cold. She walked towards them step by step like a vengeful ghost. The Xianyuan family is gone, my imperial mother is dead, and my son is seriously ill and won't live past the end of the year. What else do I have to lose? You are different. You have a huge maternal family behind you. You have healthy and long-lived children. I only ask you one thing. Do you dare to die with me? The barefooted are not afraid of wearing shoes. Right now, I am the barefooted one. Digression. The monthly votes are close to breaking 10,000. If it breaks 10,000, we will add more chapters. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/106325382. HTML Genius will remember this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile version reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 787. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. Shangguan Yin was right. She has nothing to lose, but they can't gamble with their children and the entire family behind them. Several people's faces were livid with anger. Wang Xianfei coldly said, "Isn't your son still alive? Aren't you afraid of implicating him in your death?" Shangguan Yin arrogantly smiled. When I rebelled against the Xianyuan family and became a commoner, I didn't implicate my son. Do you think that my imperial father will vent his anger on my son for framing you? This was true. The emperor's tolerance and preference for Shangguan Qing was obvious to all. Wang Xianfei clenched her fists, her nails deeply piercing into her palms. "What do you want to do?" Shangguan Yin said with a smile. "I don't want to do anything. I just want to see your frightened look. I'm happy. When I'm happy enough, I'll send this evidence to my imperial father. At that time, we'll go to the underworld to see my imperial mother." Crazy. Chen Shufei stomped her feet. Next door in Gu Jiao's room, Gu Jiao and Gu Chengfeng were clinging to the wall like octopuses. Their 2 ears grew on the wall. "Well, it seems they're gone," Gu Jiao said. Xiaoheng looked through the crack of the door and saw the figures passing by. "And I also know." Gu Chengfeng left the wall, straightened up, and asked in confusion. "But I don't understand, why don't we directly ask them? For example, let them take out the evidence of framing the Xianyuan family? In the past, the Xianyuan family had so many crimes. How many of them were fabricated by these families? If they get the evidence, they can rehabilitate the Xianyuan family." Gu Jiao said, We can't take the initiative to say it will expose our bottom price. Never reveal your bottom price to anyone. The greatest requirement is to have no desires, and the greatest requirement is to have no demands. Let your opponent take the initiative to send all the chips in their hands to you. These were the words of her godfather. Gu Jiao felt that her great-aunt's arrangement was right. If Sheng Guanyin reveals that she wants to rehabilitate the Xianyuan family, Wang Xianfei and the others will know that she doesn't want to die. She has a request and can bargain. As a result, the 5 of them are likely to use the evidence to threaten Sheng Guanyin. Now let them beg Sheng Guanyin and rack their brains to find the motivation for Sheng Guanyin to live. The evidence to rehabilitate the Xianyuan family would certainly be sent to Sheng Guanyin, and it was likely to be far more than just evidence. Concubine Wang Xian and the other 4 messed around for the whole night. When the night fell, the entire Qilin Hall fell into a peaceful slumber. Little Jing Kong was sleeping at Xiao Heng's place tonight. The reason was that his great-aunt had been kicked by his little foot several times, so she didn't want to sleep with this little monk anymore. Gu Jiao went to the courtyard and removed the last piece of gauze for the Black Wind King. Its injuries were completely healed. Gu Jiao stroked its head. In 3 days, she would take the Black Wind King to take over the Black Wind camp. The road they were going to take was finally the right one, but there was still a long way to go. They couldn't relax for a moment. They couldn't be complacent because of a temporary victory. They must always be vigilant and ready to fight at any time. Give it to me. Xiaoheng came over and said. Gu Jiao was stunned. Ha! Why haven't you slept yet? Xiaoheng took the gauze from her hand and raised his other hand to tidy up her hair. You haven't slept either, right? Gu Jiao said. Oh, I came to see the Black Wind King. Xiaoheng said. I came to see you. His eyes were heavy, gentle, and affectionate. His whole heart and eyes were filled with the person in front of him. Gu Jiao blinked. This guy was getting more and more outrageous as he grew up. As soon as there was no one around, he would flirt with her. He was about to become a walking hormone. If this continued, she wouldn't be able to handle it. From a physiological point of view, her body was gradually maturing. It was indeed easy for her to be attracted to the hormones of the opposite sex. It's not my problem, it's the hormones' problem. Before Xiaoheng could say anything, he saw the little girl shake her head. He said in amusement, Why are you shaking your head? Are you not letting me see you? Let me see you. Gu Jiao said. Xiaoheng smiled gently. Gu Jiao suddenly smacked her head into his chest, her forehead resting on his firm chest. He stretched out his strong and slender arm, and gently stroked her shoulder. Are you tired? Gu Jiao shook her head against his chest. I'm not tired. I'm tired for grandaunt and granduncle. They're already so old, but they still have to worry so much. Grandaunt doesn't like scheming against each other. She likes to play leaf cards in Jade Water Alley. Xiaoheng smiled. Grandaunt likes to play cards, but she likes you even more. You being safe and sound is grandaunt's greatest joy for the rest of her life. Gu Jiao didn't move. She just leaned against his chest like a lazy calf. She rarely relaxed like this. Only in front of him did she release a little bit of her fatigue. She was indeed exhausted during this period of time. It seemed that ever since she entered the Yan Kingdom, she hadn't stopped. The boxing competition, Guyan's surgery, the fight with the Han family and Nangong family, the fight for the Black Wind Cavalry. She was so busy that she couldn't stop. She was worried that others would be tired. She just didn't remember how tired she was. Xiaoheng looked at the little head in his arms and said, At most 3 months. I'll let the Yan Kingdom finish. Gu Jiao. She had a tone of confidence. Xiaoheng hugged her and asked softly, When you're done, what do you want to do? Gu Jiao thought seriously and said, EQ. Xiaoheng. The 2 of them stayed in the courtyard for a while until they were almost carried away by the mosquitoes. Xiaoheng held her hand and returned to the house. Xiaoheng stood at the door and said to her, Let's go in. Gu Jiao didn't hear him. She was in a daze. Xiaoheng pointed at her forehead. What are you thinking about? Gu Jiao came back to her senses. Nothing. I just suddenly remembered what Nangong Li said to me before he died. I do deserve to die. I betrayed you and the Xianyuan family. My death is not regrettable. I'm not surprised that you came to me for revenge. There's nothing to feel wronged, but you really think that the Nangong family did all those things? You're wrong. Haha. You're very wrong. The Nangong family can't even be considered as an accomplice. They're just a hunting dog that wants a piece of fat meat. The person who really harmed the Xianyuan family is Gu Jiao recalled. Jin something, it seems to be Yang, but it also seems to be Liang. He couldn't speak clearly at that time. It's Jingyang, right? Xiaoheng said. The Yan monarch's name is Shengguan Jingyang. Gu Jiao nodded. Oh, then it should be him. Xiaoheng held her shoulder and said seriously. The Xianyuan family will be rehabilitated, whether the Yan monarch is willing or not. In the middle of the night, Gu Jiao went to the secret room again. She wasn't surprised to see the state preceptor inside. This person came often recently. However, he didn't seem to have done anything bad to her. I'll guard him tonight. The state preceptor spoke just as Gu Jiao put the small medicine box into the groove. I'll guard him myself. Gu Jiao said. Are you sure? The state preceptor asked. Gu Jiao felt that there was a hidden meaning in his words. What do you want to say? The state preceptor said. You trick so many people at once. Wang Xian and the others don't know about you, but the Han family more or less knows a thing or two. How did this guy even know about them tricking the imperial concubines? The state preceptor said indifferently. In the future, don't let people in through the front door. Imperial concubines came in disguise one after another. Did they really think the state preceptor hall was blind? Gu Jiao asked. Who let them in? If she didn't admit it, then they didn't. However, what did this guy mean by the first sentence? The Han family's understanding of her. The Han family didn't know that she was Gu Jiao, but they knew that she wasn't the real Xiao Lulang. They also knew that she was studying at Tianqiong Academy. Following this clue, they could easily find her residence. Not good. Marshal Aunt Nan and the others were in danger. Imperial concubine Han fell off the horse. The other party couldn't touch them in the state preceptor hall, so they attacked everyone related to them. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. Willow Lane was completely silent. Marshal Aunt Nan had just finished boiling the last antidote for Gu Changqing. She rubbed her sore neck, put the antidote in a porcelain bottle, and planned to go back to her room to rest. She first went to Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan's room. The two children were sleeping very soundly. She then closed the door to old Master Meng's room. The old man's snoring was a little loud. Finally, she dragged her heavy steps and fell on her bed. The summer was hot, and the cicadas on the tree branches were incessant. The cicadas' chirping covered the sound of clothes rustling in the night. A few black shadows quietly sneaked into the courtyard. They came to the door of the central room, took out their daggers, and began to pry open the door. Gu Yan suddenly woke up. He held his breath and listened attentively. The movement at the door was very light, but he still heard it. He pushed Gu Xiaoshan. Gu Xiaoshan turned over in a daze and muttered. What? Gu Yan covered his mouth. Shoo. Gu Xiaoshan was stunned. After 3 seconds of dizziness, he woke up and looked at Gu Yan in astonishment. Gu Yan lifted the curtain and pointed outside the door. Someone was coming. Digression. Thanks for everyone's monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/106319976. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 788. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Xiaoshan sat up. His movements were fast but not heavy, almost silent. He gave Gu Yan a look. I'll go take a look. You wait here for me. In fact, in terms of age, Gu Xiaoshan was 1 year younger than Gu Yan, but Gu Yan had always been the sickly one. Gu Xiaoshan was used to protecting him. Gu Yan shook his head, indicating that he didn't need to look. He should go wake up Master's wife and the others. Okay. Gu Xiaoshan responded in his mind. Without even wearing shoes, he went barefoot to Master's wife and Master Lu's room. When he passed through the central room, he clearly felt the other party trying to pry open the door. However, Master Lu was the best craftsman in the Zhao country. The door bolt he had modified was not easy to pry open. Of course, he didn't rule out the possibility that they would use force after getting tired of prying. For example, they could kick it open. Gu Xiaoshan had to hurry. He shook Master's wife awake. Being shaken awake in the middle of the night, Master's wife was startled. She was about to speak when she saw Gu Xiaoshan cover her mouth. He had learned this action from Gu Yan. He used it obediently. Master's wife was an experienced person. When Gu Xiaoshan woke her up in the middle of the night and covered her mouth to prevent her from speaking, she only blinked and realized that something was wrong. She kicked Master Lu, who was beside her, awake. What's wrong? What's wrong? Master Lu asked with a confused expression. Master's wife glared at him and whispered, Be quiet. Someone's coming. Master Lu instantly became alert. Master's wife had to get up once or twice at night, so she slept outside. Master Lu gently walked past her and got out of bed. He picked up Table Mountain's axe and walked out the door. Master's wife quickly put on her shoes, put on an outer garment, and went to the central room with Master Lu. Click. After a slight sound, the door bolt was finally pried open. The door was pushed open from the outside. A person in black walked in. But what welcomed him was an axe shining with cold light. That person was an expert. A normal thief would have been split in half by the axe. He hurriedly took a step back in an attempt to avoid Master Lu's axe. However, although he managed to avoid it, his clothes were split in the middle, and his belt was also torn apart. The other 4 people behind him and quickly pulled out their swords. One of them pulled him aside and thrust his sword at Master Lu. Mistress Nan's gaze turned cold. You want to hurt my man? With a flick of her finger, 3 Tanghua needles flew towards that person. Master's wife, and Master Lu's Master Lu. He blocked 2 of them, but the remaining one hit his arm. An unusual pain came from his arm. He frowned and said with a ferocious expression, There's poison. Master's wife shot out another round of hidden weapons. This time it wasn't just the Master's master needles, but also her poison darts. Gu Xiaoshan didn't stay idle either. He took out his newly made mechanical box and threw it at the group of people in the courtyard. Xiaoshan. Master Lu hurriedly closed the door on one side and used his axe to block Gu Xiaoshan and Master's wife to his side. With a few loud bangs, the door was shot into a sieve. Master Lu wiped his cold sweat and said to Gu Xiaoshan, Next time you make a hidden weapon, can you make one that doesn't hurt your own people? Gu Xiaoshan scratched his head. Oh, he made many. The only one that didn't hurt him was given to Gu Jiao. The rest were all indiscriminate attacks. The one just now was the newest one. He hadn't tried it yet. I thought it was a success this time, he muttered. Master's wife and Master Lu worked together to take care of the 5 people in the yard. Master's wife looked at the men in black who were lying on the ground and frowned in confusion. Only 5 came? I heard that there were 6 of them just now. Ah! Gu Yan's scream came from the backyard. Their expressions changed and they rushed to the backyard. When they arrived, they saw Gu Yan holding a stick with both hands and a man in black who had been knocked unconscious by his stick was lying on the ground. Everyone. You knocked him unconscious? Gu Xiaoshan asked in a daze. This was simply too unbelievable, okay? Gu Yan puffed out his small chest and said proudly, Yes. Gu Xiaoshan couldn't help but give Gu Yan a thumbs up. Brother, from now on, I have a whole new level of respect for you. But, Gu Xiaoshan frowned. Why did you call him unconscious? I thought he did something to you. Gu Yan held the stick and said, This is more imposing. Gu Xiaoshan, Gu Yan's sneak attack was successful purely because that person stepped into the trap in the backyard and inhaled the knockout powder scattered from the eaves. As they were talking, there was a sudden whoosh from the front yard, followed by fireworks exploding in the sky. Master Lu threw an axe over and knocked the struggling man in black unconscious. Master's wife looked at the fireworks above her head and said with a serious expression, "It's a signal. They're gathering their companions nearby. We can't stay here any longer. Hurry and leave. Don't pack your things." Money was a small matter. Escaping for their lives was a big matter. Gu Yan rushed into the house and took the golden lantern that Gu Jiao had brought back from the Lantern Festival. He didn't take anything else. Master's wife went back to the house to put on her clothes and took a few masks. Although she didn't pack, she still took the banknotes that were convenient. Master Lu carried her hidden weapons and poison on his back. We can't forget this. This is the antidote for Chongqing. Master's wife took the medicine bottle from the table and put it in her arms. On the other side, Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan went to call Master Meng. However, Master Meng was in a deep sleep and couldn't be woken up even if 5 bolts of lightning struck him. I really have to hand it to you. Gu Yan was mad. Xiaoshan, you can carry him. I'll do it. Master Lu walked into the house and handed the basket on his back to Gu Xiaoshan. Go and prepare the carriage. Okay. Gu Xiaoshan agreed. He and Gu Yan went to the stable, took the horse out, put it on the carriage, and opened the back door. Master Lu carried the sleeping Master Meng on his back. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan also sat on the carriage. Master's wife sat on the outside seat and grabbed the reins. I'll drive the carriage. I'm more familiar with the terrain of Chengdu. After Master Lu put Master Meng in the carriage, he came out and sat with her. I'll look after it for you. Okay. Master's wife didn't refuse. In the middle of the night, a carriage drove out of Willow Lane and left on the quiet street. There was no curfew in the outer city of Chengdu, but at this time, there weren't many carriages on the street. Their carriage would be very eye-catching. Go to a crowded place, Master Lu said. Where's the crowded place? Master's wife asked subconsciously. Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Gu Yan lifted the curtain and said, Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the place where Gu Chengfeng sang opera. Now only that street was bustling all night. That was the best place to go. Master's wife turned the carriage and rushed in the direction of Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Quick! They're over there. Hearing the assassin's voice, Master's wife clenched the reins in her hand. Not good. They're catching up. This time, it wasn't 5 black-clothed men, but a total of 10. 10 assassins leaped onto roofs and vaulted over walls, following the loud sound of horse hooves and the clunky sound of the carriage wheels. They gradually closed in. I see the carriage. Go. Remember to capture the 2 young ones alive. Kill the rest without mercy. Yes. The black-clothed men split into 2 groups, 5 on the left side of the road, 5 on the right side of the road, surrounding the carriage. Following the leader's hand gesture, everyone used qinggong to soar into the sky in the night. They pulled out their long swords and slashed open the carriage. The horse was frightened, and with the sword energy cutting the reins on the horse's back, the horse fled in panic in the night. At this time, no one cared about the horse. Everyone surrounded the collapsed carriage. Who did it? The leader was fierce. I said to keep the 2 young ones alive. What if they died? Everyone lowered their heads. The leader pointed at the black-clothed man beside him. You go take a look. Yes. The black-clothed man who was pointed at bravely walked forward, using his long sword to pry open a collapsed carriage wall, but found that there was no one in the carriage. He turned back and said, Leader, they ran away. The leader narrowed his eyes. They can't have gone far, split up in chase. Did they leave? In a small shop that was closed, Madame Nan asked in a small voice. Master Lu slowly poked his head out of the wall, leaning against the wall and looking outside. Seems like they left. Phew. Madame Nan leaned against the wall and sighed in relief. This group of people's breath is different from the ones just now. They are death warriors, very difficult to deal with. Gu Yan's expression suddenly became a bit strange. Gu Xiaoshan noticed his strangeness and asked, Are you okay? Does your heart hurt again? No. Guyan shook his head. I just feel there's danger. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword energy cut through the air. Master Lu and Madame Nan each held a child and dodged to the side. The sword energy fell to the ground. An innocent water tank was hit and split open on the spot. Old Mr. Meng, who was tied to Master Lu's back, was shaken awake. However, in the next second, his head hit the wall and he was knocked unconscious again. Master Lu, did you hit something just now? But I didn't feel any pain. Digression. I seem to have updated too quickly. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1063042007. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 789. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Two men of sacrifice jumped into the courtyard. Nan Sherngyang said to Master Lu, "Take them away first. I'll block them for a while." Master Lu said, "No. Take them away. I'll block them." Nan Sherngyang said angrily, "If you say any more nonsense, I'll divorce you." Nan Sherngyang's martial arts were abolished, but she was an expert in using poison and concealed weapons. Her chances of winning were much higher than Master Lu, who couldn't even beat the Horse King. Humph. None of you are allowed to leave. The men of sacrifice attacked. Nan Sherngyang directly threw 6 darts over, opening a path for Master Lu and the others. Go quickly. Master Lu gritted his teeth, grabbed Gu Shaoshan with one hand and Gu Yan with the other, stepped on the ground and flipped over the wall. Unfortunately, Master Lu and the others were not far away before the remaining men of sacrifice caught up with them. The 8 people blocked all their escape routes. The leader of the men of sacrifice said, "Hand over the 2 little ones, and I'll leave your corpse intact." "Bah." Master Lu said coldly. "Come at me if you have the guts. I'll see what skills you have." After he finished threatening, he whispered to the 2 disciples, "Do you still remember how to use the mechanism box?" The mechanism box he spoke of was not a half-finished product made by Gu Shaoshan. He made it himself. It was something that could really save their lives. But it took a lot of time to make. He had only made 2 so far and gave them to the 2 children. He and Nan Xiang didn't have any. The 2 nodded. Master Lu lowered his voice and said, "In a while, I'll hold them back. You guys split up and find a place to hide. Use the breathing technique I taught you to hide your breath." He always disagreed with Nan Xiang's various impulsive actions. For example, don't be enemies with the imperial family of Zhao country. Don't come to Yan country and take risks. You're only a master's wife, not a biological mother. But when it came to a real life and death situation, he still didn't hesitate to sacrifice his own life to find a way out for the 2 children. Gu Shaoshan grabbed Gu Yan's wrist. "I know, father." The word father made the tip of Master Lu's nose sour, and a swollen pain surged up his throat. Shaoshan usually only called him Shifu, but she would occasionally call him adoptive father. This was the first sound, and also the last one. Tears flashed in Master Lu's eyes. When one got older, it was easy for their eyes to leak urine. He smiled and said to the men of sacrifice in front and behind him, "Come on, come at me together if you have the ability." The Death Warriors didn't waste any time talking to him. They raised their swords and rushed towards him. "Old Master Meng, I'm sorry. The 2 children can't run away with you. I can only wrong you to stay with me." Master Lu untied the ropes on his body. Old Master Meng had just woken up when he was thrown to the side of the road by Master Lu. He fainted again. "Old Master Meng, Master Lu wasn't a match for these death warriors, but he fought as if he didn't care about his own life, forcibly carving out a bloody path. Originally, it was Gu Xiaoshan who was grabbing Gu Yan. Unexpectedly, Gu Yan's wrist suddenly turned and he grabbed Gu Xiaoshuan's wrist instead. "Let's go," he said decisively. The two of them rushed out of the street and fled for their lives in the empty night. In order not to let the two children's hearts soften, Master Lu didn't cry out even when he was stabbed. He just gritted his teeth and swallowed all the pain back into his throat. However, a few death warriors still chased after them. "There's a well over there." Gu Yan looked at the empty space in front of him and said, "Go. Hide in it." Gu Xiaoshan was very good at swimming. He pulled open the well cover and jumped down first. Then he raised his head, wiped the water droplets off his face, and reached out to Gu Yan. "Jump down, I'll catch you." Gu Yan stood beside the well and stared at Gu Xiaoshan, whose eyes were filled with encouragement. He smiled slightly and grabbed the well cover forcefully. Gu Xiaoshan suddenly panicked and whispered, "Gu Yan, what are you doing?" Gu Yan said, "Don't make a sound." Gu Xiaoshan paddled and tried to climb up. "Hey, come down. I'm your older brother." Gu Yan said, "This time it's my turn to protect you." His body was very weak and his strength was very little. He almost used up all the strength in his arms to cover the heavy well cover. Then he broke into a run. As he ran, he said to the people on the other street, "Let's split up. You go that way." The death warriors who chased after them decisively ignored the well, and split into two groups to chase after them. Gu Yan ran forward with all his might. He had been sick for the first 16 years. He would pant after walking a few steps. After the operation, he finally understood how easy it was to be a normal person. He had never run so wildly before. He felt his heart contract violently, and there was a majestic power flowing through his body. Was this the body of a normal person? It felt good. He felt it. "Stop. Otherwise I'll make a move." A death warrior stood on a roof not far away and shouted at Gu Yan. Of course, Gu Yan didn't stop. He used all his strength to run forward. He was like a child who had never eaten candy before, and wanted to eat it all at once. He also wanted to run as fast as he could. The death warrior's mission was to capture someone alive. It was said to capture, not invite. It didn't matter if he was slightly injured or seriously injured. It was fine as long as he was still breathing. The death warrior saw that Gu Yan didn't follow his orders. His eyes turned cold. He jumped up and slapped at Gu Yan's back. He didn't know that Gu Yan was a weak person. This slap was enough to injure Gu Yan's heart again. At this critical moment, the sound of horse hooves that were as swift as lightning came from the night sky. Almost at the same time, a red tasseled spear with a murderous aura shot towards the death warrior like lightning and directly pierced through the death warrior's shoulder. The death warrior let out a mournful scream. The strength of the red tasseled spear was beyond the death warrior's imagination. The death warrior didn't have any strength to fight back, and was directly knocked over. He fell heavily on the hot bluestone street. Gu Jiao rode the Black Wind King, and rushed over with a cold expression. She pulled the reins and blocked in front of Gu Yan. She coldly looked at the death warrior who was bleeding nonstop. "Who allowed you to touch my brother with your dirty hands?" The death warrior kept vomiting blood. He pulled out the dagger at his waist, but before he could make a move, the Black Wind King stomped on his chest and he died on the spot. Gu Jiao pulled out the red tasseled spear. The other death warrior saw that the situation wasn't good and ran away. He wanted to find his companions. But could he run away? Gu Jiao's red tasseled spear was like a sharp blade in the hand of the King of Hell. It didn't give him a chance to escape and instantly pierced his heart. Gu Jiao took back the red tasseled spear, and rode the Black Wind King back to Gu Yan's side. Gu Yan was in a sorry state. The tuft of hair on his head couldn't stand up and drooped listlessly. Gu Yan stared blankly at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao reached out her hand to him. Gu Yan guiltily gave his hand to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao pulled him up and sat behind her. Gu Jiao said seriously, "You're acting like an older brother now?" Gu Yan's eyes flashed. He stretched out his arm and hugged Gu Jiao's waist. He put his head on Gu Jiao's body and said shamelessly, My head seems to be a little dizzy. Did I run too fast? My heart also hurts." Is my heart disease acting up again? Gu Jiao closed her eyes and held the reins tightly. Biological brother, biological brother. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Gu Jiao brought Gu Yan to find Master Lu and Madame Nan. Madame Nan had already escaped from the small courtyard and was surrounded by 6 people with Master Lu. Perhaps the mission this time wasn't too difficult. The men of sacrifice sent by the Han family weren't too strong. Gu Jiao and the Black Wind King quickly took care of them. Madame Nan and Master Lu were slightly injured. Fortunately, they weren't seriously injured. Old Master Meng didn't treat them as dead people. No one targeted him. He was fine. Gu Jiao and Gu Yan went to the place where Gu Xiaoshan was hidden. Gu Jiao removed the manhole cover and pulled Gu Xiaoshan, who had almost reached the top, up. Gu Xiaoshan was wet. Even her eyelashes were dripping with water. Sister. He was very surprised to see Gu Jiao. But thinking of something, he glared at Gu Yan with hidden bitterness. Don't do this in the future. It was so dangerous. In terms of running, could Gu Yan outrun him? He was the #1 village tyrant of Qingchuan village. He was a fast runner from 10 miles away. It would be more appropriate for him to be the one to lead the enemy away. Gu Yan curled his lips and snorted. He whispered, I'm the older brother. Gu Jiao took the State Preceptor Hall's token out of the inner city tonight. If she had been a step late, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Lord State Preceptor, I owe you another favor. Madame Nan and Master Lu were covered in cuts and bruises. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan were also in a sorry state. Even if they had the State Preceptor Hall's token, they would still be strictly checked. And they didn't have the inner city's token, so it was impossible for them to enter the city. As for their original residence, it was already targeted by the Han family, so it wasn't safe. Gu Jiao said, Let's find an inn to stay for the night. Madame Nan and Master Lu's injuries need to be treated as soon as possible. It's just a small injury, Madame Nan said indifferently. Jiao, who are those people? Gu Jiao replied, They're the Han family's death warriors. Being targeted by the Han family, they had to settle Madame Nan and the others in a safe place as soon as possible. But where was the best place? Digression. The recent updates were too fierce. My soul was hollowed out. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1063035881. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 790. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao was now living in the State Preceptor's Hall. Her first reaction was to bring her family to her side. But then she felt that it was inappropriate. She was living in the State Preceptor's Hall because she was ordered to treat the Crown Princess. It was still acceptable to take in 2 patients who came here because of its reputation. But it was a bit strange to bring her fellow countrymen who came to Yin Kingdom with her. It would easily make the Emperor of Yin Kingdom suspicious. I have to think about it tonight, Gu Jiao said in her heart. The few of them stayed in the inn. Gu Jiao took out iodophor and golden sore medicine from the first aid kit. She carefully cleaned the wounds of Nan Shirnyang and Master Lu. Most of the injuries were superficial. Master Lu had been protecting Nan Shirnyang and was slightly more seriously injured than Nan Shirnyang. I told you not to rush over. Nan Shirnyang glared at him. Master Lu chuckled. I have thick skin and can take a beating. Trained by fighting with the Horse King. Gu Jiao finished treating all of Master Lu's injuries and reminded him. Don't let the wounds get wet first. They will be fine in a few days. Are you injured? Nan Shirnyang asked. I'm not injured, Gu Jiao said. Yan and Xiaoshan are not injured either. Nan Shirnyang let out a long breath. It didn't matter to the two adults, as long as the children were fine. Master Lu asked, by the way, Jiao Jiao, why did you leave the city in the middle of the night? Gu Jiao took out the state preceptor's hall token hanging on her waist. I have this. My goodness, she even got the state preceptor's hall token. This girl was doing well in the inner city. Too many things had happened recently. The length of the note was limited, so she didn't have time to tell Nan Shirnyang and the others. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gu Jiao told Nan Shirnyang and Master Lu what had happened recently. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan also came over after changing their clothes. They also heard Gu Jiao's heavy news. Everyone's focus was different, but they were all surprised by the same thing. Jiao Jiao took the Han family's Black Wind Cavalry. Gu Chongqing was injured. Empress Dowager and Old Chancellor came to the Yan Kingdom. In comparison, although the Crown Prince and Imperial concubine Han's fall from the horse was also shocking, it did not garner much attention. They were more concerned about the situation of their own people. That's how it is. Gu Jiao concluded with a single sentence. The person involved was very calm, but Master Nan and Master Lu's hearts had long been set off stormy waves. The water in the pool that was Shengdu had been stirred up, and the situation had reached a state of mutual hostility. The 10 great aristocratic families seemed to be united, but in fact, they all had their own selfish motives. Currently, there were 5 clans that the Jiaojiao clan had information on. However, if the Nangong clan was included, there were still 6 clans left. Among them, the conflict with the Han clan was the most intense. The Nangong clan doesn't seem to have made any movements recently. Madame Nan said thoughtfully. The Nangong clan had indeed been too quiet recently. The only time they were in the limelight was during the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander. The Nangong clan's legitimate daughter represented her family, and did not hesitate to ruin her own reputation to pull Han Xi down. Because she did not succeed, she suddenly became a laughingstock. Master Lu snorted. Nangong Li's death was too big a blow to them, and the Crown Prince also fell from the horse. The Nangong clan may have to think carefully about whether they should follow a different master. The Nangong clan, who held the power of 400,000 soldiers, was now in high demand. Once the Han clan fell, the Nangong clan would enter the ranks of the 10 great aristocratic families. It was unknown whether they would have this opportunity. It's getting late, you should all go and rest. Madame Nan stopped the conversation in time, otherwise it would have continued until dawn. They had nothing to do, but Jiao Jiao was working around the clock. The 3 children returned to their respective rooms. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan shared a room. Gu Jiao shared a room, and old Master Meng also had a single room. Not long after Gu Jiao laid down, Gu Yan came over. He climbed onto the bed and laid down next to Gu Jiao. Then he did not say a single word and only hugged Gu Jiao's waist. He gently rested his chin on her shoulder and breathed in the air that made him feel at ease. Gu Jiao laid flat on the bed and quietly looked in the direction of the curtains. He said with a trace of pleading, "Don't be angry at me, okay? I won't be like this in the future." Gu Jiao raised her hand, one arm behind her head and the other holding his hand. There are too many emotions in this world that I can't feel. Only through you can I cross that black and white zone. I'm very nervous right now, can you feel it? Gu Yan asked. I can feel it. My pulse is beating very fast. Gu Yan's face darkened. Who told you to take my pulse? There's also excitement, happiness, pride. Gu Jiao felt all of it. It's so good to be a normal person. It's so good to be an older brother who can protect his family. Also, how can I run so fast? I'm really an arrogant baby Yan. Gu Jiao looked at the top of the curtains. Oh, I'm really an ox. Although they tossed around until midnight last night, Gu Jiao still got up before the sun rose. The sky was gray and a piece of white seemed to be about to roll over. Gu Jiao sat up and found 2 small boxes by the pillow. She was dazed for a while before she remembered that Gu Yan seemed to have stuffed something in her hand when he left. She was a little confused at the time and didn't pay much attention to it, so she casually put it by the pillow. As for why there were two, after Gu Yan left, Gu Xiaoshan seemed to have come over. He also stuffed something in her hand. Is this a mechanical box? Gu Jiao took it in her hand and looked at it. These two mechanical boxes were given to Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan by Master Lu to save their lives. Last night was so dangerous, but the two were unwilling to use them, so they gave them to Gu Jiao without hesitation. It's obviously Master Lu's handiwork. Gu Xiaoshan couldn't make something of this level. Gu Jiao more or less understood the importance of these two mechanical boxes. She dressed neatly, washed up, and quietly went next door. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan were sleeping soundly. Gu Yan's sleeping posture was very good. He could stay motionless for the whole night. Gu Xiaoshuan's sleeping posture was originally quite bad, but in order not to kick Gu Yan, he forced himself to endure. Gu Jiao put the mechanical boxes back into their pockets. Gu Jiao left a note in her room, saying that she was going out and would come back in the afternoon. She was going to solve the problem of her accommodation. She went back to the State Preceptor Palace. Her grand-aunt was still sleeping. Gu Jiao didn't wake her up and went directly to Xiao Heng's room. Little Jing Kong didn't have classes today, so he got up early and went to the courtyard to plant a tree. Xiao Heng had just changed his clothes and looked like he was going out. When he saw Gu Jiao coming back, he hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Only he and the state preceptor knew that Gu Jiao went out to save people last night. Gu Jiao said, "The Han family took action. Everyone is fine. They are resting at the inn tonight. I think it's time to arrange a place for them to live. Let's live in the inner city," Xiao Heng said. "Anyway, the Han family has their eyes on us. There is no difference between the inner city and the outer city. The Han family won't expect us to have the guts to bring them to the inner city." Gu Jiao thought it was feasible. Xiao Heng said, "I have been looking for a house these days. The guarantor said yesterday that there is a small courtyard that meets my needs. Do you want to go and have a look?" Before Gu Jiao could answer, little Jing Kong stood on tiptoe outside the window and showed half of his little head. "I also want to go. I also want to go." Two people took the little trumpet spirit and sat in the carriage. When they arrived at the agreed-upon location with the guarantor politely cupped his hands in greeting. He didn't inquire about the identity of the other two young masters that Xiao Heng had brought over. He only said with a pleasant expression, "Young Master Long has arrived. I've already greeted the owner of the small courtyard. We can go take a look now." The guarantor led the way in front. Gu Jiao whispered, "Why are you still using Long Yi's name? What are you going to do when you sign the lease document?" Xiao Heng also whispered, "Granduncle made a fake travel permit. It's enough to fool the guarantor." Gu Jiao secretly gave him a thumbs up. "Granduncle, you are awesome." Little Jing Kong held the two adults' hands and jumped around happily. The family arrived at the house mentioned by the guarantor. It was a relatively quiet old street. Most of the residents had moved away. The area looked old, but the furnishings in the house were new. The lighting and ventilation were excellent. Xiao Heng looked at the guarantor who was negotiating with the owner of this small courtyard and said to Gu Jiao, "This place is very close to Lingbo Academy. Go through the alley in front and take a carriage east. We will arrive there in a quarter." Since Gu Yan and Madame Nan were hunted down, then Gu Jiao, of Kanglan Women's Academy, who was related to Xiao Lulang, would soon become the target of the Han family. Gu Chengfeng had to disappear from the academy immediately, and little Jing Kong would continue to be a day student in the future. "Do you like it?" Gu Jiao asked little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Gu Jiao and asked, "Lulang, did you choose this house?" Gu Jiao blinked and nodded. "I chose it. I let Long Yi choose it." Little Jing Kong stretched out his little arm. "Then I like it." The corner of Xiao Heng's mouth twitched. However, Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng weren't very satisfied. They had a lot of people. This small courtyard looked big, but there were only 3 rooms for them to live in. "Aren't there 5 rooms?" The guarantor and the owner of this small courtyard discussed. The owner said, "I want to use 2 of the rooms as storage. I have to put some things in." Well, it turned yellow again. The guarantor wiped off his cold sweat and said to Xiao Heng, "Then young Master Long, I will take you to other places to look." In the end, they weren't satisfied with a few places nearby. Little Jing Kong pulled Gu Jiao's hand. "Lulang, do we have to rent a house on this street?" Gu Jiao said, "No, it's mainly because it's close to the place where you go to school." Little Jing Kong, "Oh, then what if there's a house even closer?" "How can there be a house even closer?" The guarantor said confidently, "I've been a guarantor for 30 years, and all the best houses in the broker house are in my hands. This street is the closest to the Lingbo Academy. You can't rent any more houses than this." Before he could finish his sentence, he saw little Jing Kong silently take out a house deed from his pouch. The guarantor. Xiao Heng was annoyed. "Why didn't you tell me earlier that you have a house deed?" Little Jing Kong crossed his arms and snorted, "I won't give it to you if you ask me. Jiao Jiao, I'll give it to you if you ask me." The guarantor found a shady tree to check the authenticity of the house deed, so he didn't hear their conversation. Xiao Heng said, "Jiao Jiao used to live in the outer city. He couldn't even live in such a small house. I didn't see you take out the house deed." Little Jing Kong felt wronged. He spread out his hands and said, "Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao was looking for a house in the outer city. I don't have one in the outer city." His words were like a country bumpkin asking a rich friend for a punitive expedition. "Why didn't you lend me your car last night?" The rich friend said, "You said you could lend me a Xiaoli." "I don't have a Xiaoli, I only have a Ferrari." Gouverside Jiao. I admit defeat. Xiao Heng's teeth hurt even more. He changed from Zhao state to Yen state. Was his landlord still the little monk in front of him? How much did he owe the little monk in his previous life? The little landlord stuck out his chest and shook one of his little feet proudly. "I'll rent it to you at a cheap price. 500 taels a month." Xiao Heng's body trembled. "Little monk, you're raising the price." While they were fighting with wits and courage, a horse carriage slowly came and stopped beside Gu Jiao and the other two. Then the window was opened and second Master Jing stuck his head out. "Eh? Jing, Lulang, why are you here? Oh, who's this little devil?" Little Jing Kong angrily glared at him with his hands on his waist. "You're the little devil." I remember now. You're that. During the 3 days when Gu Jiao was in a coma after the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander, second Master Jing accompanied Dukan to visit Gu Jiao at the State Preceptor Hall, and met little Jing Kong. However, little Jing Kong was wearing the Academy's uniform at that time, and looked like a little scholar. Now that he was dressed like an ordinary young master, it was hard to recognize him. "I'm not that. I'm Jing Kong." Little Jing Kong seriously corrected him. Second Master Jing laughed. Yes, that's your name. You even saved the little commandery princess. You're a little hero." "So much nonsense. You're even blocking me from seeing my daughter. Today, I want to beat up my stupid brother again." Duke N's eyes were as sharp as knives. However, second Master Jing and his eldest brother had no tacit understanding. Gu Jiao walked over and looked through the window. When she saw Dukan, her mood suddenly became very good. When Dukan saw Gu Jiao, he couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. After knowing that Gu Jiao was looking for a house, Dukan proposed to let her live in the Duke's mansion. Oh. Gu Jiao hesitated. Seeing her frown, Dukan dipped his fingertips in water and continued to write on the armrest. "The Duke's mansion has protectors. It's safer than living outside." He wrote "you, not you." As smart as Dukan was, he had already guessed that Gu Jiao wasn't looking for a house for herself at this juncture. She was living well in the State Preceptor's palace. There were few places in Chengdu that were safer than the State Preceptor's palace. Second Master Jing took little Jing Kong to catch cicadas on a big tree on the street. Xiao Heng and the guarantor discussed the matter of renting a house under the shade of the tree. Only Gu Jiao and Dukan were in the carriage. Gu Jiao considered the possibility of living in the Duke's mansion. Dukan continued to write. "It's also close to Lingbo Academy. It's convenient to send that child to school." Gu Jiao looked at the words on the armrest and was stunned. "I didn't mention little Jing Kong. How did you know that he wanted to live there? You're as smart as the State Preceptor." Seeing Gu Jiao's adorable look, the smile in Nguagong's eyes almost overflowed. He couldn't make any expression. Otherwise, the corners of his lips would reach his ears. He wrote, "There will be delicious food and drink every day. There will also be many guards and endless money to spend." At this moment, Dukan was a bad guy who was trying to coax children. Gu Jiao widened her eyes and asked, "But didn't the Duke's mansion give away all its wealth?" "You earned it again," Dukan wrote with a smile in his eyes. The look in his eyes seemed to be saying, "Your adoptive father is just an ordinary little business genius." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and said seriously, "It doesn't matter if it's money or not. I just want to cultivate a relationship with you." Dukan laughed in his heart. Gu Jiao wasn't a pretentious person. She didn't say that if they went, they might bring danger to him. She was Duke N's adopted son. Duke N's mansion had been involved in this dispute for a long time. Or, it could be said that Duke N's mansion had never gotten out of this dispute. From the moment Duke N used up all his wealth to collect the bodies of the Xianyuan family's sons, he had already announced his position to the entire Yin kingdom. Gu Jiao told Xiaoheng about Duke N's proposal. Xiaoheng always felt that Duke N had a father-in-law's hostility toward him. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have agreed so easily. But when he thought of the little monk's ugly little face, he felt that Duke N's mansion wasn't that hard to accept. He would never admit that he was stingy. 500 taels a month. Xiaoheng paused. There's also the Inner City Talisman Festival for Madame Nan and the others. I'll think of a way. Gu Jiao said. Oh, there's no need. Dukan said he can get it. Xiaoheng felt like he was shouted at. He didn't even have a chance to show off in front of Jiao Jiao. Why do I feel an indescribable sense of crisis? Was it too late to change his mind and rent the little monk's house? After the accommodation was settled, Gu Jiao decided to go back to the inn. Little Jingkong wanted to go with her, but he was dragged back by Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng said obnoxiously, "You're now my little follower." Little Jingkong went crazy. Bad brother-in-law is not cute at all. In the inn, old Master Meng finally woke up. He stood in front of the wash basin with his messy hair, and looked at the reflection of his pig's face in the basin. There were 10,000 black wind kings galloping in his heart. Who beat up this chess saint? He couldn't remember what happened last night at all. When Gu Jiao came to the inn, they all got up and gathered in old Master Meng's room. Master Lu didn't dare to say that he was the one who hit old Master Meng, so he shamelessly pushed the blame to the guards and men of sacrifice of the Han family. Old Master Meng was successfully led astray, and made a mark on the Han family in his heart. Gu Jiao told him about her plan to move. In the afternoon, Duke N's mansion will send the inner city talismans to the inn. We'll move in at night. So fast. Gu Yan was surprised. I mean, it'll take half a day to get the inner city talismans. The inner city talismans were not a small matter. Generally, the government office was not qualified to issue talismans to people from other countries. Even if it was, it would take a few months. Gu Jiao said. Dukan said he has a way. After saying goodbye to Gu Jiao, Dukan immediately went to deal with it. Although the talismans were tricky, there was a family that had the privilege to issue them. That was the Mu family. Old Master Su was the governor of Sheng City and had a good relationship with Honglu Temple, who was in charge of foreign affairs. Dukan asked Second Master Jing to invite Mu Qingchen over. After Gu Jiao left Tianqiong Academy, Mu Qingchen rarely went there. He had been living in the Su family these days, so he came over quickly. Dukan, you look good, Mu Qingchen said. I'm much better than before. Dukan wrote on the armrest. Mu Qingchen stood beside him and looked at the words on the armrest. He couldn't help but be amazed. A living dead who had been in a coma for 3 years had recovered to such a surprising extent in less than 3 months. Gu Jiao participated in the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander as Duke N's adopted son. In the end, Gu Jiao won. In other words, this strong opponent was sent to the field by Duke N. However, Mu Qingchen didn't have a grudge against Duke N because of this. He didn't even ask why Duke N adopted a young man from Zhao country. They got along with each other as usual. Duke N continued to write. Qingchen, to tell you the truth, I have a request. Go ahead. Duke N wrote his request solemnly on the armrest. He knew that this matter was very abrupt and difficult to handle. However, it was an emergency. Mu Qingchen's method was the fastest way he could think of. When do you want it? Mu Qingchen asked. This was a promise. Although he knew that Mu Qingchen wouldn't refuse his request, he still heaved a sigh of relief. He wrote, "Today. The sooner the better." It took at least 10 days to half a month for a local to apply for the Talisman Festival in the inner city. It took a month for people from other countries to get it through the examination of Honglu Temple. After going through all the procedures, it would be lucky to get it in the 3rd month. Okay, I'll bring it to you before dinner. Mu Qingchen agreed almost without hesitation. He didn't ask who Dukan was doing it for. Dukan wrote, "Thank you, Qingchen." Mu Qingchen said, "I promised Yinin that I would take good care of you." Dukan looked at Mu Qingchen's back and sighed in his heart. Since Gu Jiao and her family were going to move in, the miscellaneous people in the manor naturally had to leave. What did you say? In Mu Ruexian's courtyard, her personal maid looked at manager Zhang in disbelief. My young mistress is living well in the Duke's manor. Why does she want to move out? Steward Zhang smiled and said politely, Miss Mu has been in the Yan Kingdom for so long. I'm sure you're homesick. The High Duke's condition has improved, so he doesn't dare to force Miss Mu to stay in the residence. His words were beautiful, but didn't they mean the same thing? Please take care of it. Manager Zhang took the brocade box from the servant behind him and handed it to Mu Ruexian. This is a token of appreciation from the Duke. Although he has already paid the consultation fee, since Miss Mu wants to go back, he has also prepared the travel expenses for you. The maid was furious. Who said my young mistress wants to go back? My young mistress hasn't become the daughter of the Duke's manor yet. Mu Ruexian's reaction was calmer than the maid's. Actually, this wasn't the first time the Duke had expressed his intention to let her go. When the Duke was able to write freely, he had tactfully expressed his thanks to her. But at that time, the Duke didn't give her enough face in front of a third person. It was she who didn't want to go. Coincidentally, the second madam had accidentally sprained her waist when she went to pick flowers. She thought the second madam had stayed in the name of treating her waist injury. Mu Ruexian said, "There's no need to rush. The second madam's waist injury hasn't healed yet." Manager Zhang said with a fake smile. The manor has already invited a doctor for the second madam. She doesn't dare to force Miss Mu to stay and let Miss Mu suffer from homesickness. No matter how thick-skinned Mu Ruexian was, she couldn't act shamelessly in front of a few servants. She said, "Then I'll pack up tonight." Manager Zhang smiled. "The carriage has already been prepared for you. It's just at the entrance. The guards have also been selected to escort you back to the Chen Kingdom. Of course, if you want to enjoy the Yan Kingdom's local customs, they will also follow you and wait for your orders." Mu Ruexian's face burned. How was this rejecting her? It was clearly driving her out. Mu Ruexian said with a calm expression, "I still have some private matters to attend to in the city these few days. Once I've settled down, I'll send the address over. If the Duke and the second madam need anything, you can come find me at any time." "That won't be necessary." Mu Ruexian took a deep breath and calmed her emotions. She said, "Please wait for a moment. I have some things." 17 or 18 capable maids swarmed in, waiting for orders in an orderly manner. "Yes." Mu Ruexian dazedly said the last word. She didn't want to speak again for the rest of her life. Less than an hour later, Manager Zhang politely escorted Mu Ruexian and her servant to the carriage. Mu Ruexian looked at the Duke's manor that she had stayed in for half a year. She was still somewhat unwilling. Outsiders only knew that the Duke had spent all his wealth for the Xianyuan family, but only those who had stayed in the Duke's manor knew how much wealth the Duke had accumulated over the years. Since ancient times, scholars were lofty and didn't like the stench of money. However, the Duke of An was different. He wasn't a greedy person, but he understood the importance of money. He could afford to let go of his status as a scholar. The more time they spent together, the more Mu Ruexian admired the Duke of An, and the more she wanted to become the apple of his eye. It was a pity that she had worked so hard for so long, but all her enthusiasm had gone down the drain. Mu Ruexian opened her mouth. "I haven't had the time to say goodbye to the second madam," Manager Zheng decisively waved his hand. Goodbye. See you again. Digression. I'm especially moved after seeing everyone's comments. Quite a few readers have privately messaged me, saying that Jiao Jiao has brought them a lot of joy and passion. I want to say that all of you have also brought me a lot of strength and emotions. Here's a tribute to the legend of the cat demon. The Prime Minister is truly amazing with all of you. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/106283707. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Pen Fun Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 792. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Muru Xian was so angry that she almost fainted. She didn't understand what was going on. She was obviously getting along well with the Duke, but the Duke suddenly changed his attitude and asked her to leave. Did something happen? Or did someone put a bad taste in the Duke's mouth? When the carriage was about 10 feet away from the Duke's residence, Muru Xian looked at the Duke's residence for the last time. Who knew that she would see a few carriages from the Duke's residence, with the leading one being the second Master Jing's carriage. The second Master Jing didn't need to get out of the carriage to return to his own home. The manservant respectfully opened the main door for him. The second Master Jing was bored in the carriage, so he lifted the curtain to take a breath of fresh air. With this breath of fresh air, Muru Xian saw the figure of a young man beside him. Muru Xian's pupils shrank. It's him. Xiao Lulang. Why is he sitting in the second Master Jing's carriage? The carriage slowly entered the Duke's residence, and the two carriages behind it followed closely. Muru Xian didn't see who was sitting in the carriage behind them, but that wasn't important. All her attention was on Xiao Lulang. In an instant, a message suddenly flashed through her mind. Humans were a strange species. It was obviously the same thing, but due to different states of mind and expectations, it would lead to different conclusions. Muru Xian recalled her situation in the Duke's residence. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that the Duke's relationship with her was very harmonious. It was only after this Xiao Lulang from the Zhao Kingdom appeared that the Duke slowly distanced himself from her. The Duke's attitude towards her took a nosedive after she had a big fight with Xiao Lulang at the entrance of the Grand Preceptor Hall. But at that time, didn't the chess sage of the 6 countries support Xiao Lulang? Xiao Lulang didn't suffer any losses. Muru Xian thought that they would have a big fight. In fact, Gu Jiao was too lazy to argue with her and didn't even bother with her. She was the one who jumped up and down. Old Master Meng couldn't stand it anymore and directly came out to humiliate her. As for saying that the High Duke got along well with her, that was purely a figment of one's imagination. The High Duke used to be in a coma and was like a living dead. How could he get along with her? The High Duke's attitude towards her plummeted, not because he knew what happened at the entrance of the State Preceptor's Hall, but because the High Duke could write now. He had wanted her to leave for a long time. The first thing the Duke wanted to write when he woke up was, Muru Xian dismiss her. However, he didn't have enough strength, so he only wrote a single Mu character. Jing Sheng, that simple-minded person, mistakenly thought that the Duke was worried about Muru Xian. Second Madam had also misunderstood the Duke's intentions. Coupled with the unrealistic dreams of her maidservants, she completely believed that she could one day become the daughter of an aristocratic family in the Upper Kingdom. The maidservant asked doubtfully, Miss, who are you looking at? The carriage had already entered the High Duke's residence, and the door was closed. There was no one outside. Muru Xian put down the curtain and said softly, Xiao Lulang. The maidservant also lowered her voice. Is he the High Duke's adopted son? Muru Xian frowned. Adopted son? What adopted son? The maidservant said in surprise. Ah, miss, you still don't know? The High Duke took in an adopted son, and that adopted son participated in the selection for the Black Wind Cavalry's commander. I heard that he won. In the future, the High Duke will have a son who can be a commander. Miss, do you think the High Duke's residence will be overturned? Muru Xian's face darkened. Why didn't you tell me earlier that the High Duke took in an adopted son? The maidservant lowered her head and embarrassedly grabbed her handkerchief. Miss, you always go to Second Madam's courtyard. I thought Second Madam had already told you. Second Madam didn't mention a single word to her. She loved her so much and praised her as if she was the only one in the world. But in the end, she didn't even hide the news of taking in an adopted son from her. Are you sure it's Xiao Lulang? She asked coldly. The maidservant said, I'm sure. I heard Second Master Jing and Second Madam talking about it with my own ears. Both of them were quite happy and said that they didn't expect that brat to be so capable. Muru Xian was so angry that she threw the teacup on the table. Why was it that she couldn't become the High Duke's adopted daughter even after working so hard for so long? While Xiao Lulang, that despicable and shameless person from a lower country, could become the High Duke's adopted son. She was the one who cured the High Duke, so why did Xiao Lulang take advantage of her? She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. The High Duke's residence occupied a large area. Under the old Duke, it was divided into East and West residences. The Second Madam lived in the West residence while the High Duke lived in the East residence. At that time, the old Duke was thinking that after he passed away, the two brothers would live further apart so that there would be less unnecessary friction. This caused the Second Madam to die. The Second Madam was in charge of the High Duke's residence, and had to run over from the West residence every day. Why was she so skinny? It was all because she was tired. Needless to say, Second Master Jing was just his eldest brother's little tail. He would go wherever his eldest brother went. Before they came, the High Duke had already discussed with Gu Jiao about her needs, and arranged a courtyard with 3 entrances for her. There were enough rooms for each of them to have one room, and there were still some left over. The servants were also carefully selected, and were very tight-lipped. The carriage stopped directly in front of Feng Courtyard. The High Duke had already been waiting in the courtyard for a long time. After Madame Nan and the others got off the carriage, they saw the High Duke sitting under the crabapple tree. He was sitting in a wheelchair, facing the direction of the door. Although he couldn't speak or move, his joy and welcome were written in his eyes. Master Lu brought Madame Nan forward and greeted the High Duke. High Duke, I'm afraid we'll have to disturb you for the next few days. The High Duke wrote on the armrest, We won't disturb you. My son's family is my family. My son. The two were stunned. Didn't you know that Lulang was a girl? Are you addicted to acting like you have a son? Gu Jiao didn't hide anything about the High Duke from her family. The only thing she didn't say was about Jing Yining. She didn't even tell the High Duke about this. All right, since one of you is willing to be the father and the other is willing to be the son, then so be it. Jiao Jiao's adoptive father is very powerful. Master Lu looked at the words on the armrest and couldn't help but sigh. Because they were standing face to face, the High Duke wrote all the words upside down to make it easier for the two of them to recognize. You're worthy of being the Pearl of Yin Kingdom. Master Lu's voice was a bit loud, and the High Duke heard it. The High Duke wrote, What Pearl of Yin Kingdom? Master Lu was embarrassed. Ah, this, Madame Nan smiled and explained. It's a rumor in Jianghu. They say that you're talented and knowledgeable. You're also a celestial beauty. You're a literary star from the 9 heavens. So the people of Jianghu gave you a name, the Pearl of Yin Kingdom. The High Duke's legend when he was young was no less than Xianyuan Chang's. One of them was a scholar, and the other was a martial artist. They were the envy of all the men in the world. They were also the dream lovers of all the women in the world. You don't have to be so polite. The High Duke wrote. He was referring to the honorifics. They were both Gu Jiao's elders. They were of the same generation. There was no need to distinguish who was superior. The first meeting was very pleasant. Dukin was essentially a scholar, but he did not have the arrogance of those scholars outside. He was approachable, honest and generous. Even Gu Yan, who was always picky, felt that he was an elder who was easy to get along with. Gu Jiao and Madame Nan went to distribute the rooms. The High Duke sat quietly under a tree. He asked the servants to turn the wheelchair around so that he could see Gu Jiao all the time. Looking at her made him very happy. It was as if he had regained something important that he had lost. His heart was filled to the brim. Guyan suddenly stuck out a small head from behind the tree. "This is for you." Guyan put a small clay figurine on the armrest on his left hand. The High Duke wrote with his right hand. "What is this?" Guyan went in front of him and squatted down. He fiddled with the clay figurine on the armrest and said, "It's a greeting gift. I made it myself." After learning from Master Lu for so long, Gu Shaoshan had perfectly inherited his master's skills. Guyan had only learned how to play with clay. Guyan looked up at him and asked, "It's my sister. Do you like it?" It turned out to be a human. The High Duke was speechless. He almost thought it was a monkey. After tidying up the room, Gu Jiao had to go back to the master's hall. First, she wanted to see Gu Changqing's injury. Second, she wanted to pick up her grand-aunt and son-in-law. The High Duke walked her to the door. Gu Jiao pushed his wheelchair towards the door. When they passed by an elegant courtyard, Gu Jiao asked unconsciously, "Whose courtyard is that?" The High Duke wrote, "Inin's. Do you want to go in and see?" "Yes." Gu Jiao nodded. The servants put a board on the threshold to make it easier for the wheelchair to go up and down. Gu Jiao pushed the High Duke in. Although this was Jing Yinin's courtyard, Jing Yinin had died before she could move in. There were 2 swings in the courtyard and some orchids. It was very elegant and unique. After the High Duke showed Gu Jiao around the front yard, he went to Yinin's boudoir. This was the most exquisite and luxurious room Gu Jiao had ever seen. Even a random Eastern pearl used as a decoration was priceless. "These things are." Gu Jiao pointed at the strange small weapons on the shelf. The High Duke wrote, "These are gifts from Yinin's grandfather." Gu Jiao's eyes fell on a painting scroll. He also sent a portrait. "Can I see it?" The High Duke wrote without hesitation. "Of course." This portrait was sent with the sword and bow in the box. It must have been accidentally put in the wrong box. He wanted to send it back, but he didn't have the chance. The things in the box were sent by Xian Yuanli before he went to war. When they met again, Xian Yuanli was already a cold corpse. Gu Jiao opened the portrait and was stunned. "Huh! Wasn't this the portrait she saw in the study in the purple bamboo forest?" It was a general wearing armor and holding Xian Yuanli's red tasseled spear. His face was empty. "Is this Xian Yuanli?" Gu Jiao asked. "No." The High Duke said. Yinin's grandfather didn't have this set of armor. Xian Yuanli's most famous armor was his golden armor. He also had a few sets of silver armor and black armor, but it wasn't this set. Gu Jiao tilted her head. Then who was this person? Why was he able to hold Xian Yuanli's weapon? Why did the state preceptor and Xian Yuanli keep his portrait? Could he be the third little clay figurine in the peach garden with Xian Yuanli and the state preceptor? The very important person that the state preceptor mentioned, who was also a teacher and a friend. Digression. Do you have a monthly ticket for me to secretly add a new chapter? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/1062788729. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 793. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that cannot be found online here. Regarding the military camp, Dukan was not very clear. It could be a general of the Xianyuan army. After all, there were many generals under Xianyuan Li. Dukan was a junior, so he did not know most of them. Gu Jiao put the portrait back. Old Master Meng did not live in the Duke's public house with them. The reason was that something happened at the chess manor, and he had to go back to deal with it. Gu Jiao was not worried about his personal safety, so she let him go. Dukan sent Gu Jiao to the door. The door of the Duke's public house was open for her. Steward Zheng stood in the open space with a smile. Behind him was an incomparably luxurious carriage. The canopy was made of superior yellow pear wood. The top was inlaid with Eastern sea pearls. There were 2 layers of hanging curtains. The inner layer was a bamboo curtain, and the outer layer was a broken jade bead curtain. It was said to be broken jade, but in fact each piece was carefully carved jade, agate and suet jade. 2 tall white horses pulled the carriage. They were strong and strong. Gu Jiao blinked. This is... Steward Zheng walked forward with a beaming face and bowed respectfully to the 2 of them. Hi Duke, young master. He then said to Gu Jiao. This is the carriage that I prepared for young master. I wonder if young master is satisfied? Dukan was very satisfied anyway. Only such a luxurious carriage was worthy of her. Gu Jiao thought to herself, isn't this a little too exaggerated? Won't I be robbed if I go out in this kind of carriage? Forget it, it seems like no one can rob me. Thank you, foster father. Gu Jiao thanked Dukan, and was about to sit in the carriage. Young master, please wait a moment. Steward Zheng smiled and stopped Gu Jiao. He took out a brand new banknote from his wide sleeve. This is your small allowance today. Pocket money? 100 taels? So much. Gu Jiao coughed lightly and asked Manager Zheng in a low voice. Are you sure it's for a day and not for a month? Manager Zheng smiled and said, it's just 1 day. The High Duke asked young master to take a look first. If it's not enough, he'll give more. Rich and inhumane this was. Gu Jiao suddenly had an illusion. It was just like in her previous life, when the rich parents in her class sent their children out. Not only did they give them luxury cars, but they also gave them a huge sum of pocket money. The only thing missing was the sentence, don't come back until you've spent it all. Oh, so this is what it feels like to be a rich second generation? That's right, it's pretty good. Gu Jiao accepted the banknote seriously. Seeing her accept it, a smile appeared in the bottom of Duke N's eyes. Gu Jiao said goodbye to Dukan and left in the carriage. Manager Zheng came behind Dukan and pushed his wheelchair. He chuckled and said, Duke, let me push you back to your courtyard to rest. Dukan wrote on the armrest, go to the accounts room. Manager Zheng asked, it's getting late. Why are you going to the accounts room? Dukan wrote, to earn money. Earn a lot of money for her to spend. Gu Jiao went to the state preceptor's palace. Her great-aunt and son-in-law were taken out for a walk by little Jing Kong. Xiao Heng was in Shang Guanyan's room. Zhang Dequan was also there. They seemed to be talking to Xiao Heng. Gu Jiao didn't go in. She went directly to the secret room at the end of the corridor. The small medicine box was always there. She could enter the operating room at any time. Gu Jiao hurried back to change the dressing for Gu Changqing. When she entered the ICU, she found that the state preceptor was also there. The dressing had been changed. Has he woken up? Gu Jiao asked. No. The state preceptor said, have you finished? Gu Jiao nodded and said, yes, I've settled everything. The first sentence was an answer, and the second sentence was a voluntary explanation. It didn't seem strange. But from Gu Jiao's mouth, it was enough to show that Gu Jiao's trust in the state preceptor had reached a higher level. Gu Jiao stood in front of the bed, looked at the unconscious Gu Changqing, and said, but I have a doubt in my mind. The state preceptor said, go ahead. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, I just thought of it on the way back to the state preceptor's palace. According to the information brought back by the emperor's grandson, imperial concubine Han thought that concubine Wang Xian framed her. The Han family should take revenge on the Wang family. Why did they hurt my family? If it's to pull the crown prince down, so many days have passed. The Han family's reaction is too slow. The state preceptor didn't show any surprise at her doubts. Obviously, he also noticed something. He didn't directly give his thoughts, but asked Gu Jiao, "What do you think?" Gu Jiao said, "I'm thinking, is there a mole among the 5 people of Imperial concubine Wang Xian?" They told Imperial concubine Han about Shang Guanyan's fake injury to frame Imperial concubine Han and her son. Imperial concubine Han then told the Han family. The state preceptor looked at Gu Jiao with a meaningful look. Gu Jiao received the look from him and slightly frowned. Or there is no mole. The Han family took the initiative to attack, not for Imperial concubine Han, but for speaking of this, an idea flashed in her mind. I will take over as the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. The Han family wants to use my family to threaten me and force me to give up the commander position. You're not too stupid. The state preceptor said coldly, then turned to the medicine cabinet and took out a bottle of anti-inflammatory medicine. You won't go smoothly in the Black Wind camp. You'd better be mentally prepared. I know, Gu Jiao said. You go do your work, the state preceptor lightly said. Don't you still have something to do? He suddenly became so cold, more and more like a godfather. Is he my godfather or not? If so, I can bully him back. In her previous life, her godfather's strength was too high, so she was always the one who was beaten. Why are you looking at me like that? The state preceptor noticed Gu Jiao's gaze that was full of bad intentions. Nothing. Gu Jiao's face didn't change as she withdrew her gaze. You don't know martial arts, so you're easy to bully. Don't let me find out that you're my godfather. Otherwise, I'll beat you up before I recognize you and get back at you for what you did to me in my previous life. Xiao Lulang. The state preceptor suddenly called Gu Jiao, who had already walked to the door. Gu Jiao turned her head. What's the matter? The state preceptor said. If, and I'm saying if, Gu Changqing wakes up and becomes a cripple. Gu Jiao said without hesitation. I will take care of him. Gu Jiao still had to send her grandaunt and son-in-law to the Duke's residence, so she temporarily left this matter to the state preceptor. However, just as she stepped out of the secret room, the state preceptor's foot came to the bedside. On the bed, Gu Changqing's eyelids moved slightly, and he slowly opened his eyes. It was just a simple action of opening his eyes, but it almost used up all his strength. The entire intensive care unit was filled with his heavy breaths from the oxygen mask. The state preceptor calmly looked at Gu Changqing. Are you sure you want to do this? Gu Changqing used all his remaining strength to nod. After Mu Ru Xian saw Gu Jiao outside the Duke's residence, her uneasiness reached its peak. She firmly believed that it was that person from Zhao Kingdom who instigated her relationship with the Duke of An Kingdom. A truly capable person would disdain to put down their status and use flowery words. However, that person from Zhao Kingdom curried favor with the chess sage of the 6 countries and the Duke of An Kingdom. It could be seen that he was a flatterer. Mu Ru Xian hated herself for being too virtuous and disdaining to use underhanded means. Otherwise, how could she let a person from Zhao Kingdom take advantage of her? The more Mu Ru Xian thought about it, the angrier she became. Since you did it, don't blame me for doing it 15 times. Mu Ru Xian found an inn to stay in. She said to the guards of the Duke's residence who were escorting her, Go back. I don't need you by my side. I will return to Qin country by myself. The leader of the guard said, But the Duke ordered us to safely send Miss Mu back to Qin country. Mu Ru Xian raised her chin and said, No need. Go back and tell your Duke that I appreciate his kindness. If I have the chance to visit Yin country again, I will definitely pay him a visit. The guards tried to dissuade her, but when they saw that Mu Ru Xian had already made up her mind, they didn't continue to pester her. The leader of the guards had Mu Ru Xian write a letter to express her intention to return to Qin country by herself. Only then did he lead the rest of his brothers back. Once the guards of the Duke of An Kingdom left, Mu Ru Xian called a maid to hire a carriage and left the inn by herself in the carriage. The Han family had been in troubled times recently. First, the Han family's disciples had met with mishaps. Then the Han family lost the Black Wind Cavalry. Now, even Imperial concubine Han and her son had been plotted against and lost their positions as Imperial concubine and Crown Prince. The Han family's vitality had been greatly damaged and couldn't bear any more losses. How could it fail? On the main seat in the central room, Old Master Han, who seemed to have aged 10 years, rested his hands on the handle of his walking stick as he spoke. Han Lei and Third Master Han stood on either side of him. Fifth Master Han was recuperating in the courtyard, and didn't come over. In the current atmosphere, even Third Master Han didn't dare to show the slightest bit of disobedience. Old Master Han continued. Furthermore, why are all the men of sacrifice who are highly skilled in martial arts dead, but the guards are fine? It wasn't that they were fine, but they still had a life. The men of sacrifice had encountered Gu Jiao so naturally, none of them survived. As for the guards who went to the courtyard to snatch the people, they were only injured and knocked unconscious by Madame Nan and the others. Han Lei said. The bodies of those men of sacrifice have been brought back. After the coroner examined them, he said they were killed by a spear. Old Master Han narrowed his eyes. Spear? Xiao Lulang? Xiao Liulong's weapon was the red-tasseled spear. Old Master Han couldn't think of anyone else who could kill so many men of sacrifice of the Han family in one breath other than him. Han Lei said, he's not the real Xiao Lulang. He's just a person from the Zhao kingdom who took on Xiao Liulong's identity. Old Master Han coldly said, no matter who he is, this person will definitely be a great threat to our Han family. During the conversation, the steward of the Han family hurriedly walked over and stood outside the door to report. Old Master, someone outside the door is asking for an audience. Old Master Han didn't even ask who it was. He said sternly, didn't you tell him I'm not receiving guests? Now that they were at the cusp of the storm, the Han family couldn't casually interact with people. The steward said embarrassedly. That girl said she's a divine doctor from the Qin state and can cure the Crown Prince's injury. Digression. Big Brother has really done a lot for Jiao Jiao. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1062629190. HTML Genius remembers this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikago mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.